suppose I can join the chat then as well.
We are live. Hello. What is going on, everybody? XB2 podcast episode 276 is now streaming on YouTube. And I am one of your hosts, Randall Snore, 19, the man with a million dreams, the man with a million sleeps. I might as well just make fun of myself. So Jez, get ahead of it because I know Jez will be essentially making fun of me the entire time. So I'm here, and with me, as always, Jez Corden, managing editor, Windows Central, and it's my fault that we're here on a Monday, although it's Jez's fault that we're 30 minutes late. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good for change. It's been a tough few weeks, but turned a corner, I think, and now we are rocking and rolling and on the come up, shall we say? It was a fun week last week. We did the one chip challenge on Patreon.
Yes, we did. For those of you who are Patreon members, Jez, Gaz, and Hargeet did the hot chip challenge on Thursday, and they weren't alone. I was there. Code Eastwood was there. King David was there. It was a fun time, about an hour and a half long. And to just see Jez go through it, although you were a trooper in the beginning, you were like, this ain't a big bad thing. And then you started to feel it. Gaz was like down for the count immediately. And then there was Hargeet, who didn't drink anything. No milk, no ice cream for 10 minutes. Like Terminator, essentially. Like, he just ate a single Dorito, like it was no big deal, right? And then all of a sudden, it hit him, and he looked like he was about to die. He had to go to he went off cam. So that's up for Patreon members if you want to check it out. It should be live later on this week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. If you just want to check it out. But it was a lot of fun, Jess. How did that feel? How did doing the... And you did post a little clip of it on Twitter. So how did it feel doing that?
Man, it's like you said, initially I was like, that's not so bad. It just tastes like a strong Vindaloo or something, And then it sort of started building up and building up and building up. And it felt like it wasn't going to stop building up for like at least maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And my eyes were watering. All the moisture just got sucked out of my face. My lips were burning. Like, oh man, it was rough, man. My eyes were streaming. And Gaz was worse for wear. But then Hargeet had a 10-minute delayed reaction to it as well, that was worrying because Hargeet had a really delayed reaction to it. And it hit him pretty hard too in the end. But yes, we have uploaded. Xbox 2 Ultimate is usually exclusive to Patreon, but because there were so many guests on, Gaz was on and stuff like that, I think it was unfair to keep that Patreon exclusive when Gaz and stuff were there too. So we've decided to put that live for the public on Wednesday over on my channel, Jezors on YouTube. I've dropped a link to that in the chat now, but that'll go live on Wednesday, and I'm going to set it to a premiere, and I'll join the chat, and we can watch the recording together if you guys are around. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun times, and it was my punishment for losing the bet. Mm-hmm. I have no idea why Gaz and Hargeet randomly decided to do it with me, but they were good sports, and we had a lot of fun, and I would do it again. You want to make another bet where you have to do it again? Yeah, I would do it again.
I don't know about that. Shout out to the Gots to be the new Gots to be the shoes for becoming the newest member of our channel. Appreciate you. But yeah, so you guys can check that out later on this week or right now if you want to. Patreon.com/XB2. I had a great time. Like, I had a smile on my face seeing Jez. I mean, look, can you just admit to the people right now that what you were doing with your whole, the deal's going to get blocks was just a double reverse jinx? Just tell people that finally, that was your plan the entire time.
No, it's not. No,
you're still not going to admit to it.
No. What? Admit to what? There's nothing to admit to.
Yeah, there is.
The deal's still not closed, bro.
It will be closed.
Still not closed.
It will be.
To admit to yet. There's nothing to admit to yet.
You want to bet on if it's going to close or not?
No, because I think it will close.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, you just no. So you just jinxed it.
Well, anything could happen, man. Anything could happen. But we'll see. But we'll find someone else to bet on. We'll find someone else. Don't you worry. There'll be more acquisitions, Rand. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, apparently Sega's being teased by Microsoft. That's a big topic for this episode. So there's a lot of
Square Enix as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool things to talk about. We couldn't really wait till do it on Friday. We were like, we got to do the show on Monday. We're like the only show that is like, hey, if we don't do our regular day, we'll just do it a different day. Every other show's like, if we miss our day, we're done for the week. But not Xbox 2. Maybe that's because we also are on earlier in the day, and
it's not early for me.
Well, I mean, earlier. I'm saying early, in comparison to other podcasts.
Early-ish.
So,
Early-ish.
yeah, thank you guys so much for being here on this Monday. Hit the like button if you're in chat or if you're watching it later, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We hit 97,000 subscribers today, Jez. So 97,000. And only 3,000 more to go to that fabled 100K, which is something I thought would never happen, but we're almost there. Probably, maybe, possibly could happen this year, which would be incredible. And if it does, well, you'll definitely get a podcast with both of us on camera, and then we'll go from there. So I'm a man of my word. Maybe we got 3 months to figure that out, or who knows? Maybe maybe even earlier, depending on YouTube and the algorithm and stuff. Because I had 1 million views this month, Jez.
1 million views.
I haven't had 1 million views on YouTube since 2020 when the new consoles were coming out. But that's that YouTube algorithm, bro. You
get $1 per view, right?
Yeah, I wish. I wish that was the case. But no, unfortunately that's not how it happens. But yeah, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and we're gonna get right into it. We gotta do some housekeeping. No sponsor today, but we do have the wonderful people, some shout outs for the Patreon, Jez, right?
Yes, indeed, you do. I'm going to get through those momentarily. Oh, damn, I forgot to start the timestamps.
Oh, no. Well, somebody did message me saying that he would do the timestamps from now on.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, it's Monday, so I don't know if he's watching. We'll see. I can
figure out the timestamps. Like, how can you tell how long we've been live? We've been live for 13 minutes, so they'll be slightly off. But
so the show's actually been live for like 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
7 minutes.
Like since we switched over to talking. Like the whole thing's been live for 14, but we started talking looks like 7 minutes and 50 seconds ago.
Okay. I'll just add that on to the timestamp and then we'll work it out from there. Because I do want to make sure people have their timestamps and stuff. But first of all, we've got our Patreon shoutouts. We've got Saucy Mods, James Wazo, The Grandest of Bip, Chris Panisse, Tharsman, Hey Blinkin, Army Dude 52C, Ryan Kuipel, Foreign Object, Mythic Marty, Moronic Donkey 99, Macazilla, Randolph 419, Celis, Eric Gregory, Elijah Vasquez, James Moore, Halo is the franchise player, Katriox, Bright Tundra 1, Man with a Million Dogecoin. That's you, Rand. Justin Duell, Frank Marino, P-Bro King, Asa T, and Madison, Untidy Tim, Grizzly Mofo OG, Governor Grimm, DZ Huffin, Andrew Courtney, Woggerman Achievement, Scarecrow 1-1, Darren Torpy, Professor JJJ, Butterball, Ghostface Killer, Wolfgang KPZ, and Ralph Wiggum. Thanks to all you guys for being on our $15 tier on Patreon. And if you guys want to get access to our XB2 plus 1 guest show, Xbox 2 Ultimate, which I think we might make more challenge oriented now because that seemed to work really well.
Yeah, well, I ain't ever eating the hot chips, so don't get that twisted. I ain't ever doing that. I would legit die. I would legit die if I had to do that. Honestly, I mean, everybody. It would be hilarious because I can't handle spicy stuff at all. So I would be crying. You would see the tears just stream from my eyes. And I would just have like 2 milk cartons and I'd be double chugging them and stuff. I would die. I would literally die. And that's why I would never do it. Because I know.
Well, we can think of other challenges. We'll figure it out. Or maybe just me and Gaz do the challenges and then you laugh. Maybe me and Gaz can try and outdo each other and just constantly try and hurt each other and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
I should ask though, how is the audio levels? Because I had to uninstall and reinstall Streamlabs because of the issues we were having last week, where I had to rebuild everything. So I see nobody's complaining, so it must be good. But Jez sounds a little quiet on my end, but that just may be on my end. He's at the level I want him to be, but he does sound a little bit more kind of lower. Let me know if the audio quality is tip-top shape. If it's not, I'll have Jez raise the volume of his voice, and I'll just kind of tweak the decibels. But nobody said anything, so I would imagine that the audio levels are good. So, yeah, I guess let's talk about what happened last week, right? Because this will go into what we've been playing, right? So last week, I didn't really play much last week. I'm kind of in that. Does anybody ever like finish like a really long game and then like kind of not want to start anything new or really long right after? Because I get like that sometimes when you play something super long and you finish it and you're like, all right, I kind of just want to chill for a bit. I don't want to start anything. And that's kind of how I felt after Final Fantasy 16. But I have been neglecting my shows, okay? And this is going to lead into why I slept through the podcast. Now, a lot of you know I am a night owl. Cody Eastwood makes fun of me all the time because that's just who I am. I wake up late and I stay up late, right? So I used last week mostly for catching up on some of the shows I missed. And I'm not the type of person who can like equally dole things out where like I'm going to play this much and then I'm going to read and then I'm going to watch my shows, right? I am a type of person that really just kind of goes heavily into one thing. So either I'm reading a bunch of books, which I have been, or I'm playing a bunch of games, or I'm watching a lot of TV, right? That's kind of just how my personality is to a certain degree. And so I finished season 1 of Silo on Apple TV, which was really good. Sci-fi show, kind of like Fallout-esque. These people stuck in a bunker. They don't know why they're there. They can't go outside because it's toxic. And I really enjoyed it. I watched all the episodes in like 3 days. And then I actually went and read the first book in the series because I did have it. I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. Everybody wants a good sci-fi show to watch. It's on Apple TV, right? And then essentially afterwards, I decided I'd watched the first 2 seasons of Barry on HBO, and the final 2 seasons were out. So I'm like, I'm going to catch up on Barry. And I love Barry with Bill Hader on HBO. It's so funny, but it's also super dark because he's a hitman, right? So I finished that, and I'm like, what do I want? So I've watched those 2 shows, and somebody had mentioned to me that I need to watch The Bear on Hulu, right? FX. And this is why I was slept through the podcast, because I started The Bear, and I couldn't stop. I legit couldn't stop. That show is so amazing. It's set in Chicago. It's like centered around a kitchen with a character who has a lot of issues, like a lot of family drama. And I was hooked from episode 1. I could not stop watching. It's one of my favorite shows in the last few years. I think there's a couple episodes that are legit perfect. And I literally finished season 1, started season 2, and basically finished that. And by the time I was done, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning on that Friday. And I'm like, all right, I got 4 hours to sleep. I can do this. And I went to sleep, and I didn't wake up. So,
well, GG. I was getting ready to podcast half an hour before the show, and I was like messaging Rand. I was like, Rand, where are you? You know? And then it was 10 minutes before the show, 5 minutes before the show, no reply from Rand. And I'm thinking, man, is Rand okay? Or has he just fallen asleep again? Turns out, you just fallen asleep.
Well, so. I had planned on waking up, and normally I wake up like every couple hours, and this time I just didn't. I just was like out, and I didn't wake up at all, and I'm like, and I woke up and I saw that it was like 4 o'clock, and I'm like, oh no.
It's fine.
And I messaged you, and I was like, "Yeah, I just woke up," and you were just like, "Really?" And you were like, "Well, you might as well tweet something," so I did. But yeah, that's what happened. And you know what? It was all worth it because the bear is absolutely incredible. Jazz, you need to watch this show, please.
What's it on? You said Hulu,
it's on Hulu. It's like an FX original. I don't know if you have Hulu in the UK. Maybe it's on Disney Plus or whatever instead over there.
I can look.
But honestly, like anybody who's listening to this, I know this is a video game show, but it's more just a podcast with Rand and Jez about what we do. Absolutely watch The Bear. I'm amazed at the writing on the show, the acting, the drama. Like you're set in a kitchen, and of how hectic it is. It is a show that makes me feel tense. Right? It's very the way the camera moves and everything. I cannot like give it enough praise. There isn't enough hyperbole or adjectives to talk about how incredible. Like season 1, I was like, this show's amazing. And then the way it ended, I was like, they don't need to do a season 2 because it kind of ended perfectly. And then here's season 2. And I'm like, there's no way season 2 is going to be better than season 1. And then season 2 was better than season 1, amazingly. And episode 6 of season 2, my heart was pounding because it was like this holiday episode with a bunch of family members. And I was just like, holy, I don't know if I've watched a TV show where I was on edge for almost the entire time. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So that's what I've been doing the past week.
That's great. That's great.
What about you? I know.
Podcast for some cooking show.
Now, Onion Bro says that the Bear's mid. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Not at all. But anyways, I know you've been playing stuff. You have the Patrons voted for Remnant 2. You even tweeted out that Remnant 2 is Game of the Year worthy. So what do you think about it?
I mean, I am loving it right now. Like the footage you can see here was captured by my brother during our co-op run. We are playing Remnant 2. It doesn't have a subtitle, I don't think, but it takes place directly after the first game. As such, I don't have a clue what's going on. I don't know what's going on in it. I don't know the story. I don't understand. As far as I am aware, there's some kind of flood-like alien that's sort of infecting the entire galaxy with its rooted, woody, evil tree creating spores and stuff like that. And you travel dimension to dimension, you travel planet to planet, dimension to dimension. I'm not sure exactly, using these crystals, which are also similar to a Dark Souls bonfire, and when you touch them, you kind of reset the dimension or the universe you're in or whatever, and all the enemies respawn, similar to Dark Souls. But I wouldn't call it a Souls-like per se, because you're not really punished when you die. You don't have to try and fight back to your souls and anything like that. So a lot of that stress is kind of the stress that typifies a Dark Souls game. It's not there. It's not the similarities, I suppose, is that there are bonfires, so clearly that's sort of inspired by Dark Souls, right? And the difficult, it's unashamedly tough and often opaque with its systems, and the game gives you tools to overcome the game's systems, but it doesn't explain that stuff. So you have to do a lot of research and a lot of thinking and reading weapon descriptions and stuff like that. So it does have Souls DNA, but I wouldn't go all the way and call it a Souls-like, because it doesn't have that sort of the risk factor involved, I don't think. But it is tough. I've been playing on the higher difficulties, and they are absolutely brutal. There is iframes on the dodge roll too, and a lot of the bosses are sort of designed around using those iframes on the dodge roll. If you don't dodge a certain ability, you will pretty much guaranteed to die on the higher difficulties. And also it feels very tuned for co-op, like the synergy between different class skills and stuff like that. One player might have healing spells, which really help a ton on some bosses. And then the bosses sometimes get random affixes. So one of the bosses we were struggling with last night had an affix called Empathy, which every time you use your Estus Flask, or the Dragon Heart it's called in this, the boss gets healed. So you basically have to do a no damage run, perfect dodging and perfect tactics to kill this thing because you can't really heal. However, later we realized that there's a debuff in the game called Bleed, which halves the amount of healing a boss can receive. So there are tools in the game to deal with all the challenges it throws at you, which is that Soulsian DNA. And so people who like Souls games will probably find a lot to enjoy about this game. There are some things that irritate me about it. The online systems are a bit buggy. It's region locked online as well, so I can't connect to a friend in America. Also, the game can crash a lot if you're not the host, which is irritating. And also, there's a lot of animation locking in the game. So, like for a game where you have to use iframes and dodge rolls and stuff like that, you can get animation locked a little bit when you're trying to heal or res someone, and that can be really irritating in a game that's supposed to be responsive and reward timing and stuff. But yeah, it's really good overall. It's a huge step up from the original game, and I really enjoy it and highly recommend it to anyone who likes challenge and toughness. And if you played through games like Elden Ring with a friend or Dark Souls with a friend, this is absolutely a great game to once again play with a friend. Love Remnant 2. I think it's brilliant. But that's pretty much all I've been playing this week is Remnant 2.
So, okay, I played Remnant from the Ashes, the first game, when it came out, and 3-player co-op with my buddies, and we were all of the opinion that it was just okay. You know, it was a decent time, but none of us were really ever, like, when we were playing it, like, I don't know if we'd ever really play a sequel. Like, it was okay. It wasn't as difficult as we had hoped, but then, you know, the sequel's out now, and they don't want to play it, and I've seen everybody post on Twitter about how amazing it is. Is it really that huge of a jump compared to the first game? Like, people have talked about how this is a jump like Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 level, or Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 2, where, like, the sequel is significantly better than the original, and it's like, okay, this was the vision they were probably wanted to achieve with the first game but couldn't. Is that sort of the jump I couldn't expect? Like, should I play this game? Is it like really that good of improvement on the first game?
I wouldn't play it solo, I don't think. It's a lot more fun in 2-player co-op. I've played Remnant solo a little bit. My hardcore character's on solo mostly at the moment. And it can feel like a grind because there's an AI director in the game that's not dissimilar to Left 4 Dead, in that, like, it can spawn hordes against you and stuff, and that can be utterly brutal when you're playing solo, and like the chips are down, and then the AI director's like, yeah, okay, now here's a horde with crazy affixes. Oh, and here's a mini boss too, for good measure. So yeah, it's much harder solo. So if you didn't get much out of the first game, I don't know if you'll really enjoy playing the second game solo. But if you play it with a friend, I'm just really enjoying it, man. Like, it's scratching that itch. And I bounced off Diablo's first season because it's just Diablo's first season is just not that interesting to me.
It's Diablo. I told you, Diablo's just okay. Nothing special.
Well,
that's why I stopped it as soon as I rolled credits on the campaign. I was like, what more is there to do in that game besides just click constantly?
Yeah,
and I've been proven right.
I've been proven right. Yeah, true. I mean, I had higher expectations for Diablo's seasons. But the first Diablo season, the battle pass is just, I don't really care about anything that's in it. The mechanics aren't that interesting. They haven't really added any new areas or dungeons or bosses or anything like that. So it's kind of like, I just can't be bothered to grind this battle pass, so I'm just going to skip it. But Remnant came at the exact right time because it's really scratching that itch for me now. Now, I haven't played the original Remnant enough to really talk about how much of a leap it is from that game. And also, I played Remnant 1 completely solo as well. So I didn't really have much of a fun time with Remnant 1. Again, I think because I played solo. But this game kind of makes me want to go back and play Remnant 1 just because I don't have a clue what's going on in the story and the world. Remnant 2 does a really bad job of explaining what's going on. It expects you to have played the first game. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I really enjoy it. If you can convince a mate to play it, Rand, fuck it, play with me, man.
You just said you can't because it's region locked.
Oh yeah, shit. Well, yeah, there's that. has that problem too. So, oh well.
So you even forgot you said that. Because I was like, oh, it's region locked? Okay, unfortunately.
Yeah,
that
so we
sucks.
can't. So yeah, I'm just so used to games not being region locked, but it seems to be unintentional because there's some people talking about on the subreddit, and there are workarounds. So maybe it's not intended to be region locked. I don't know. Like I say, it's a little bit buggy right now, and the devs have said that they're prioritizing bug fixes before they add content and stuff, which is obviously what they should be doing. But yeah, man, I really enjoy it. I really, really do enjoy it. I enjoy it way more than any sort of superficially similar game like Destiny, maybe, I suppose you could say. Um, yeah, I really rate it, you know, really, really enjoying it.
Well, that's good. That's
Can't
good.
say much more than that.
I'm looking forward to playing like Atlas Fallen when it comes out and stuff. So, obviously we got Starfield coming in a month. Immortals is coming. I think there's like Strays coming to Xbox in August. I think there's a whole bunch of August games, and then it's kind of just the fall season hits. It really starts this next month. It's like August through November seems to be packed beyond belief. How's Windows Central going to handle that, Jez? You got a lot of games.
I honestly,
not a lot of time. You know, are you enjoying playing Starfield right now? Like, how's Starfield going for you?
As far as I know, the Starfield review period hasn't begun yet.
Mm.
There is a lot of games coming this month. You got Mortal Kombat, you got Armored Core, you got Cyberpunk DLCs coming up soon.
And you played
well.
Armored Core, correct?
Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah, you can talk about that because your article came out. Tell us about Armored Core. I haven't played an Armored Core in a while, and you know I do like From Software. I enjoyed Bloodborne. I love Sekiro. I loved Elden Ring. You know, I'm watching the gameplay clips of Armored Core, and it looks fast, it looks furious. The scale looks incredible. Like, what did you think of it?
Okay, well, I went and played Armored Core. Wow, it was a while ago now. It was like a month ago now, almost a month, 3 weeks or something. I absolutely loved it, and I haven't played an Armored Core game before. Obviously, I'm coming in from. I played Mech Warrior, of course. I've played Mech Assault, and I've played other mech games. I'm a fan of the BattleTech universe. I played BattleTech, even though it's not an action game; it's a turn-based strategy game. But I like big mechs. Who doesn't like big mechs, right?
Yeah.
So, but somehow I never played an Armored Core. Never played one. I played similar games, but I've never played Armored Core specifically. But I kind of, I had an expectation because mech games. They all come with certain expectations, which is like, building up your mech, choosing specific gear for the job, and all that kind of stuff. And I was coming in from Elite Dangerous as well, which isn't a mech game, but it still has some of that similar elements. Like you build up your ship, you have to balance the weight of your ship against the energy consumption of your ship, and balancing your weapons and all the stats and all that kind of stuff. So it has similar sort of DNA. And Armored Core's approach to builds and making your mechs it's so in depth. It is so in depth. The way that different components can affect your mech build is really, really cool. And you can have specific loadouts for different jobs and different tasks and stuff like that. But where it really shines, of course, is the combat. The combat is absolutely spectacular. And I know I've done my research, and I know it's not exactly the same as classic MechWarrior games. So like the other MechWarrior games, they didn't have a hard lock-on like this one does. This one has a hard lock-on, which will take control of your character's direction. Whereas like in the previous mech game, it was always like kind of piloting a tank where you had to point it around, you had to point up and down and stuff like that. And I believe like even in the very, very old mech Armored Core games, you even had to use like R1 and R2 to look up and down. And there was that whole sort of like, it took claw style gaming to the next level, right? But this felt a lot more traditional. However, it does ask a lot of you control wise, and I think you're gonna struggle if you don't have an elite controller for the back buttons, because it kind of wants you to have your thumbs on the sticks at all times to control the omnidirectional combat movement. Because you not only do you have to dodge like left and right and horizontally, you have to dodge like in every direction. Because missiles can come from anywhere, it's crazy like that. So it's some bosses like a bullet hell kind of motif going on, and in those instances, you don't want to have your fingers off the thumbsticks for any reason, but you do have to take your fingers off the thumbsticks sometimes because like the boost and all the different moves are on the A, B, X, Y buttons, right? So like when I was playing it, I was proper thinking these controls are tough. they really ask a lot of you with these controls. And I was sitting there thinking, I really wish I had an Elite controller for those back buttons, so I didn't have to let go of the thumbsticks at any one time. But yeah, the game was fantastic, you know, and it has the Sekiro style stagger meter, which is super satisfying. If you continually barrage the enemies, it builds up their stagger meter, and then they have like a malfunction or they overheat or something, which opens them up for like some of your slower, more powerful attacks and stuff, and weaving them in and out while dodging all the missiles and all the kind of stuff coming at you, using buildings for cover and all that kind of stuff. It's tremendous. It's fantastic. And some of the bosses were just insane. These like huge AT-AT style Star Wars walkers and stuff that you have to fight, and it just really feels like it was just spectacular, man. I can't describe much more than that, you know.
So you're saying From Software's done it again?
Now, I don't know if it's going to be. It's clearly, the scope clearly is on the same level as Elden Ring. You know, it's visually not as impressive as Elden Ring, and also it's not an open world game. It's mission based structures with checkpoints and stuff like that, right?
How long are the missions?
The missions are quite brief. Anywhere between like the regular missions, probably like you're looking at maybe 10 to 25 minutes, maybe, and then like for the bigger missions, maybe a little bit more, 30 minutes or so. And like then you get to bosses, and bosses can be really tough. And as you're sort of working out how to kill the boss, that'll add time as well. So like you could get stuck on a boss for hours potentially if you don't know what you're doing. You know, you probably like when the game finally comes out, you'll be able to like look up guides on, you know, the best builds and the best tactics to maybe make the bosses easier. But I was just going in blind, man. And I was the only journalist that I could see that actually got to the end of the demo that I played. So like we didn't have that much time, but like we only had access to chapter 1, and like I had to leave a little bit early because I had to catch a train. But I did get to the last boss of the demo. I didn't kill the last boss. I had a few tries on the boss. It was like this drone with this bullet hell stuff kicking off all over the place. Flamethrowers, missiles going everywhere. Absolutely crazy. And, you know, I'm sitting there thinking, like, how the hell am I going to be able to beat this within the next 30 minutes? So that was really tough. And then I got up and looked around, and, man, like, the people hadn't gotten that far in the demo, you know, because it's a tough game. And if you go in with the wrong expectations, I think you'll find it even harder. But I went in there with experience of mech games. And when I was building my loadout, I sort of, instead of going for bigger guns, I went for improved boosters. I went for decreased weight. I went for improved targeting and stuff like that. Whereas I noticed some of the other people went for like bigger guns, which probably made them too heavy to dodge some of these bosses' abilities, right? So like, unless you kind of have that mech sort of experience and you go in trying to play it like a Souls-like or something, you might struggle. But man, it was just great mech game. I'm really looking forward to it now. I didn't really know what to expect going in. It's probably not on the same. It's not going to be as popular as Elden Ring. Visually less impressive. The scope's not as grand as Elden Ring. You know, there wasn't that many cutscenes in the game. The voice acting was notably lower quality than Elden Ring, I would say. But it was exciting. It was spectacular. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And people who like mech games and like From Software games, they will enjoy the challenge of working out how to kill some of these bosses, because they were really tough, really difficult, and I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna pre-order it, I think, because I don't think I'm doing the review because I'll be at Gamescom, so I'll pre-order that stuff.
Yeah,
but that's Armored Core.
Yeah, sounds really cool. I really been. It's been a long time since I played an Armored Core game, and those videos make it look really, really cool. So it's like, oh, another game that I want to play, maybe. So it's just like there's just so much. This year is absolutely packed. So. Yeah. We have a super chat here from Brightburns, 1985. They say, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. What a great movie that was. You ever see that, Jez?
Yeah, I love Fight Club.
Yeah, Fight Club's amazing.
Spectacular movie.
Space Dovakin, member for 27 months. Xbox 2, let's go. Happy Monday, guys. Love y'all. Yes, thank you all for being here on this Monday. Sorry we couldn't do the show on Friday. It was my fault. You can make fun of me all you want. You can add, Randall Snore to your repertoire. Call me a bunch of different names. People were calling me Randall Bland or Blandell Thor. Might as well just call me just Blandell Snore now or something, right? Might as well. Because it is embarrassing, So, Nerds and Other Legends in the Super Chat says, I get Final Fantasy is a big deal, but I wish Microsoft would leverage their Sega partnership and revive Sega's deep well of dormant RPGs like Panzer Dragoon Saga. There's a lot going on in the Japanese partnership area of Xbox right now, right?
Yes, there is.
It definitely
They're working very hard on that section,
a very big change from how it was in previous years, where it almost seems like everybody's on board at this point. Almost everybody.
Almost.
Right?
Almost. We're getting there.
Yeah. And that's obviously a big topic that we're going to be talking about, is the Final Fantasy stuff. James Wiseau says, I have the perfect gaming duality right now, playing Remnant 2 and then Diablo 4 specifically when listening to a podcast. Really enjoying the mix. Remnant 2 definitely a surprise hit. Yeah, I know it really hit up Steam really hard. Like, I saw it was like 110,000 concurrent users when the first one only peaked at 48,000. So definitely seemed like people are enjoying the sequel. I've seen a lot of Xbox gamers also being like, yo, this game is legit, to the point where like it's like I'm kind of sitting there thinking, it's like, well, maybe I should play this,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, maybe I should see if it's any better than the first game, but I don't know if I have anybody to play it with. My friends are all weirdos right now, so
why?
I don't know.
Why
They're just all a bunch of weirdos. You know what I mean? Danny Passion Official in the Super Chat. Remnant 2 is a lot of fun. I'm 61 hours in. Holy cow. Damn. Sadly, I'm stoked on the train event bug. I played over 200 hours of the first game. Remnant 2 much better so far. 8.5 out of 10. That's some high praise. Dead Planet says, genuine concern level for future Xbox consoles. I mean, I guess we should probably talk about that, right? Since I think that's maybe like the topic that happened on Tuesday. And I know you wrote an article that pissed a lot of people off.
Hey, the truth hurts, baby.
Does it, though? Is it the truth?
Yes.
Because you also wrote an article saying the Xbox Square relationship won't be fixed for a long time, and then it was 2 months, and it was fixed 2 months later, so...
I didn't say that.
I literally went back and read your article, Jez. You literally said that.
I speculated, bro.
Bro, you literally said the Xbox Square relationship won't be fixed anytime soon. That there was deep structural fractures in the relationship between Xbox and Square. Now, granted, and I'm not really giving you... I'm just kind of making light of this situation because how are we going to know things that are going on behind the scenes, right? How are we to know that Microsoft was really kind of... not insulating, but I'm thinking of a different word, but kind of putting themselves into the ear of the new CEO. How could you, like you said, how could you predict the new CEO change, right?
Yes.
And then not only that, but
to be completely fair, Microsoft people at Microsoft literally told me before I wrote that article, we're working on it.
Yeah.
They literally told me that. They told me that in LA, we're working on it. Now, I kind of took that to mean we're doing our best, no promises. But they clearly delivered, I mean, so they're kind of underselling it a little bit to me there.
But I'm just saying, now that you did say it won't be fixed anytime soon, and it was fixed 2 months later, so I'm looking for Xbox hardware to be fixed 2 months later.
Yeah, maybe.
In a similar thing. But, so last week, Xbox and Microsoft had their financial report of the previous quarter, and what was it, like Xbox revenue was up 1%.
1%.
The console was down 13% in comparison to the previous year, right? The previous quarter of the quarter of the year previous. Mm-hmm. Services and revenue was up 5%, even though they had projected low teens. So it was kind of, it didn't hit the number that they had projected the previous quarter. And we had the full picture of that fiscal year for Xbox, and it was their second best fiscal year ever. And it's funny when people talk about, hey, Phil Spencer needs to go, you need to get rid of Phil Spencer. But when you actually look at the revenue charts, of what Xbox has done under Phil from when he was 2014 to 2023, I mean, you look at it, and the revenue for Xbox has only gone up. It's literally only ever gone up. It's probably one of the reasons why he has the job, and is one of the reasons why Satya trusts him, because they've gone from like essentially $7 million or $7 billion in revenue, during Phil's in like 2014 to essentially almost $16 billion this past fiscal year, right? So a lot of money being made, not as much as Sony, not as much as Tencent, but $16 billion is nothing to sneeze at. But obviously,
no, I would not sneeze $16 billion.
And then ABK is about to join, and that'll add another $8 billion to $9 billion, and they'll be up to $25 billion, right up there with Sony, a little bit behind Tencent and stuff. So, as you always mention, as Phil talked about, the ABK deal is about accelerating their vision, right? Getting King for mobile, and getting Blizzard for PC, and then getting Activision and Call of Duty for everything, and then hopefully pumping Game Pass numbers everywhere and all that. We've talked about that at length, right? But as usual, seeing the hardware numbers, because I think for a lot of people, the hardware still is like the heart for them, right? They're console users. They want to see Xbox do good, and they see on the other side PlayStation killing it, right? 40 million consoles sold. And it's I mean, Sony knows what they're doing, because Microsoft had their financial stuff on that Tuesday, and then Sony announced their numbers on the Thursday, 2 days later. It was very deliberate that Sony put that information out there, right? So now it turns into this whole console debate where, is the console dying? Are they doing enough? Did they make the right choices? Was the Series S a failure or a success? Did Microsoft make the right choice in putting Series X blades into the cloud? Because, the numbers, I think the numbers could be better. I don't think they're great, and I don't think Microsoft thinks they're great, right? But that's led to a lot of dooming about the future of console and the future of Xbox in general, which is odd. So you have Xbox podcasts and Xbox people worried about the hardware situation and being like, oh God, is Microsoft and Xbox even going to be around in the future? And then you have PlayStation people and PlayStation podcasts talking about how Xbox is about to become a monopoly with ABK. Like, literally. Like, you can't just but laugh at the dichotomy between the two camps, where Xbox fans are worried about the console, and PlayStation fans are worried that Xbox is about to dominate the entire industry. There's like a disconnect between all this, which is so weird to see, right? But my take on it is, I think the consoles could be doing better. I think Xbox overestimated the demand for the Series S in like what they thought it could do at the beginning of a generation. I think they completely overestimated consumers' desire to own that system. I think it's pretty apparent now that consumers actually want the $500 system. They want the one that is going to give them the best versions of the games. And I understand why they wanted both, right? Their whole strategy is, we want to be everywhere. We have a device for you, whether it's the hardcore or a casual who just doesn't want to spend that much and all the sort. Like, I get it makes sense, but to me it seems like they made a choice to put the Series X in the cloud, thought the Series S would basically carry them, and it didn't. And I also think you can't really talk about that without mentioning that, well, Xbox was doing really well in 2020. And they sold really well in 2021. They couldn't keep up with demand of the console in those years. And even in early 2022, if you go look at the numbers, they even outsold PlayStation like 6 times, 2 quarters. And they talked about how we can't make enough of these. And then suddenly, it's like the demand's gone. Like, what happened? And you sort of look like, what also happened in 2022? Oh yeah, Redfall and Starfield got delayed. And Xbox had their worst year in first-party history, and I do think that matters. Where they didn't really have anything to push the console. They can't really market the console because you don't really have anything for the console. So, yeah, I do think for some fans, it might be a wake-up call to see the numbers that low, and they think, oh my God, they're not gonna make another console, right? Which is, I think, ludicrous to think that. But I will say, like, the numbers aren't great. The numbers could be a lot better. Maybe they'll pick up with Starfield, but I doubt it. I don't think you'll sell a console based off of just one game. I think it takes a string of great games for stuff to really kind of change the perspective. Like, Starfield needs to be great, and so does Forza, and then Hellblade, and Avowed, and Towerborn, etc., 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 to get to the point where people are like, all right, now Xbox is just more than a Game Pass machine, and it's more than Halo, Gears, Forza, right? It's all this other stuff. Call of Duty, right? Blizzard, all these things are all going to have an effect on the whole ecosystem, and hopefully, you know, demand for the console will increase over time. But I don't think Xbox is where they want to be. Like, when they had probably plotted out where they thought they would be starting in 2019 or whatever, 2020, I don't think I don't think they thought, well, we'd have this many consoles sold in 2023 and this many Game Pass users. I think they're behind where they projected themselves to be, partially because of the pandemic, pushing back game releases and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's my take on it. I know you have probably a little bit more, you know, spicy one, but
yes. Well, first of all, I don't think the demand's gone. I still think they're having stock issues, and I think my conspiracy theory is that something went wrong with the chip suppliers. Either they lost a yield or something, or they lost a bid to Sony on some silicon or something. But clearly something went wrong to the point where Sony surged ahead with 300%, and then Xbox is down 13% quarter over quarter, or year over year, or wherever it is. That's more than just waning demand. And I would argue that Starfield is generating demand for Xbox consoles. Just anecdotally speaking, I know of a bunch of people who've expressed to me interest in Xbox Series X specifically because of Starfield. And if the marketing starts ramping up for that game, I say if, because sometimes Xbox is under.
Well, I mean, they did just release like 3 Starfield animes recently, like animated shorts.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm talking about billboards.
What you're saying is you want Starfield on the side of buses, is what you're saying, right? Like how Spider-Man 2 is on the side of trains and stuff. You want to see that out in the world. You want to see New York Times billboards. You want to see commercials and things of that nature. Yeah, right. That's because I'm asking this. Who's running the marketing for Starfield? Is it Xbox or is it Bethesda?
I presume both of them, you know, having some hand in it. But like when Final Fantasy 16 was ramping up its marketing campaign in the UK, you couldn't walk 5 meters without seeing Final Fantasy 16. I saw a billboard for Final Fantasy 16 outside my local grocery shop in the middle of nowhere in Northern England. I have never seen Microsoft market something that hard in recent years. And surely, if you're going to do some kind of traditional targeting the normie marketing, you kind of need to be looking at billboards and looking at public, because most people don't know Starfield even exists. They don't even know to associate it with Fallout and Skyrim right now, and I think the marketing effort is lacking right now.
Well, I mean, okay, but I'll push back on that in just a tad, because they did put out that their latest Starfield Direct and Xbox show from June was their most watched ever. 93 million people watched it, right? There's that there. I mean, Starfield was 45 minutes of the show. Everybody who watched it was like, yo, this is really great. Jeff Keighley's poll was, hey, this show was an A, 50%. I get like, okay, we're a month out from the game, right? A month out from the early access release. Where is like the flashy stuff? People always do the comparison. They see what Sony does, and they're like, why isn't Xbox doing this, right? So they see that San Diego Comic-Con came, and there was a new story trailer for Spider-Man coming in October, and they had the console release, like the custom console. And a lot of people are like, why doesn't Starfield have a custom console, right? Why? I think a custom Starfield console could be really cool, and maybe it would sell well. So a lot of people look at that, and they're like, that's a miss, right? But then we always have this talk about Xbox marketing, and I know there are people in the chat, I know there's people in certain Discords who this is their favorite subject matter to hear about, right? And they'll be like, they don't, it's like, who are we? I'm not a marketing major, whatever. But I will say, maybe I've always thought that Xbox relies too heavily on Game Pass to market stuff for them. Because you can make an argument that what do you really need to spend on marketing something when 30 million people are going to wake up one day and Starfield is going to be present right there on the Xbox dashboard, on PC, on Steam, and that those 30 million people could just press a button and immediately start playing, and you can have that sort of viral effect like Hi-Fi Rush did, where Hi-Fi Rush was out, people started playing it, started tweeting about it on social media, on X, right? Stupid X. Start at Zeeton or posting or whatever the hell they changed it to, and it's just Starfield. And especially, if the reviews are great, whenever the reviews do come out, and if they're like, hey, this is a 90 meta game, that could really kind of increase awareness of the title. We saw what that did for Elden Ring, right? Because I don't really think Elden Ring was marketed that much more heavily than their Dark Souls game, but we've seen the sales of Dark Souls, they basically blasted past that into the stratosphere, going from like 5 million to 20 million. And I would say it's probably not the marketing that did that. I think it was other factors. But I think Xbox looks at Game Pass as a marketing tool, and they're like, all right, 30 million people are going to turn on their Xboxes, and they're going to see Starfield right there with the button to download it and start playing it, right? So, but I get like, hey, you should be doing more than that, right? But I mean, we're about to go into August. They could easily start the marketing now because the game's about to come out. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, the other point I wanted to make there was like, is there any point going so hard on marketing when, like you say, most people are going to attach via Xbox Game Pass anyway? And maybe there's no point going so hard on marketing for new to Xbox customers if you don't have any stock with which to market them for, So like, if you had a huge boost in Xbox Series X stock, maybe it would make more sense to go hard with traditional marketing, because you want to let people know, oh, we've got Xbox Series X stock, we've got this new game, come and join our ecosystem. But if you don't have the stock, it's kind of like a waste of money to try and push the game too hard to people who are sort of new to Xbox customers, because anyone who's actively engaged in Xbox, they can just slap an ad for Starfield on the dashboard, which they'll do anyway. And then it kind of nullifies the whole point if you've literally got a billboard you can push in front of their face on their console. So you don't really need to market to people who've already got a console. You need to market if you've got new consoles to sell, and maybe you just don't. Maybe you just don't have new consoles to sell.
But I mean, Phil did say, are you saying Phil lied? Are you saying he said the Series X supply was going to be better after E3?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to be better. I mean, it's in stock at Amazon UK right now, but it's not in stock at Amazon US, or at least it wasn't last time I checked. So, better doesn't mean completely fixed, right? Whenever I look for a PS5 right now, it's available to buy.
Sure. Yes.
Especially because Sony's selling through the stock as fast as they can because they got a new PlayStation.
Yeah, because the one and only Tom Henderson seems like he's going to be right once again. Right, he was already right about a lot of things. The Project Q, the handheld, and I did see Amazon rename the PlayStation 5 to like PlayStation 5 Standard Edition, and there's a bunch of price cuts in a couple different countries for it. Most likely clearing stock. So the new PlayStation 5 can slide right in there, the slim with the detachable hard drive or whatever. And then next year you can essentially have the PS5 Pro. Interestingly, Jez, we talked about last week about like Xbox maybe not doing a mid-gen refresh or people not wanting a mid-gen refresh and stuff. And I don't think I've ever asked you this, but did you know about the Black Series S 1 terabyte system before they announced it at E3?
Kind of. I heard there was going to be new hardware from a certain someone. I don't know if they'd want me to say who it was, but there was a journalist out there. No prizes for guessing who, I guess. But they told me that they'd heard there'd be new hardware.
But I mean,
at the
how
event,
far in advance was
like
this?
2 days,
Like 2 days? Yeah,
2 or
okay.
3 days, something
But
like that.
did a code name? I guess the thing I'm getting is like you discovered. Well, not you in particular, but you had talked about Project Scarlet, which ended up being Anaconda and Lockhart, which ended up being Series X and Series S, right? The code names for next gen. Did you ever come across what would have been the code name for this Series S Black, system, 1 terabyte hard drive? I would imagine there would be a code name for it, right?
Yeah, there probably would have been, but the code names I often get access to are related to specific operating system versions, kind of. So the new Series S doesn't have a unique series operating system or whatever. It's just the Series S.
I guess the question is like,
mode.
would a mid-gen upgrade also have that? Or because I guess
A mid-gen upgrade probably would have a code name that well, maybe not these days. Microsoft's improved their sort of security a lot recently. A lot of the leaks that used to happen was a result of Microsoft uploading information to public APIs, right? So there was public APIs like the Halo API, which is how Tatanka leaked, and then the Windows Store API, which is how some other stuff leaked, and blah blah blah. And then like operating system manifest files. All of this stuff was publicly accessible if you know where to look. And Microsoft was basically leaking this information themselves. Now they've closed a lot of those loopholes. So, but still, there are still other places where you can find code names. I've got a bunch of Xbox code names that I believe are operating system SKUs that I don't have devices to attach to them yet. So I don't know if these represent new devices like a mid-gen upgrade, or if they represent a cloud gaming version, because there's like the cloud gaming stuff works a little bit differently, so that has its own code name, I believe, or it used to have one. But some of the code names I've got could indicate a mid-gen upgrade. However, I've been kind of told, or at least hinted to, in LA, off the record, or on background rather, that there's not a lot of. It felt like there wasn't a lot of confidence in the idea of doing a mid-gen upgrade for Xbox. So, but I don't know if that was like a red herring, kind of like, or someone disagreeing with Xbox's strategy about doing a mid-gen upgrade or not. But it kind of sounded to me like Microsoft wasn't going to do one from conversations I had in LA. But that could just have been them thinking it was not a great idea to do one, and that there actually is one coming. So it's hard to say. But right now, I don't think they're going to do one.
Right. My more point was like nobody said anything about a black 1 terabyte Series S.
No.
That came out of nowhere, and I was like, well, could the same be true for essentially what could be a mid-gen upgrade where nobody says anything and then boom, there it is, right?
I mean, sure. I mean, it could happen, but like there was at least some inference that the black Series S would happen in a few different places, and I was kind of like, after I was told about it, I was kind of like, oh yeah, of course, because of certain things. But this is different with the Xbox Series X Pro. Right now I'm erring towards, until I see evidence to the contrary, I think they're gonna ride out the gen with just these consoles.
Interesting. Well, do you have any more? I know that was kind of a tangent, but about like the numbers and the hardware and stuff from the the financial report. Anything else you want to, your article or whatever?
Yeah. Well, one thing I want you to do, Rand, I want to put it in the chat again. Do you want an Xbox Series X mid-gen upgrade?
You can make the poll too, can't you?
I can't.
Why can't you?
Only you can make the poll.
Okay.
I want you to throw that in the chat, because last time we ran that poll, before it was announced or revealed that Sony was doing one, people were against it. Now, I want to know if people have changed their mind now that Sony's doing it, basically. Because that's the kind of the debate now, isn't it? It's like, well, if Sony does it, then Microsoft has to do it, right? So like, let's see if people have changed their thinking on this. I'm of the opinion that it's kind of like, I don't want to see a world where Microsoft doesn't have an answer for what Sony's doing, but other people might just feel differently about it. Some of the rumors coming out about the PS5 Pro are pretty spectacular, man. One of the rumors is that it's going to be double the power and have the same price. That would be a nightmare for Microsoft, I would think. Do you not agree with that? If it was? If they double the power and have the same price, isn't that a really bad situation to be in?
Yeah, I mean, if there was double the power, I mean, yeah, the pricing would be obviously, if somehow PlayStation was able to price it the same as the Series X, yeah, that'd probably be a very... Well, that would also imply the regular PS5 is cheaper. So, yeah I mean, but then again, at the same time, Xbox, I mean, Phil says, hey, we're not in the business to out-console Sony. Their whole marketing, maybe their whole business strategy has shifted to other things. So, I don't know.
I think, Space Dovian says, no way that's true. I mean, yeah, that's definitely, it's not entirely likely, but can you imagine if that was the scenario? If that was a scenario where Sony has a sort of Xbox Series S SKU that's more powerful than that's the same power as the Xbox Series X, and then a more powerful version. That would essentially create Microsoft's 2 SKU platform, but more powerful in both SKUs. So that kind of creates an issue, I think. But there's a lot of thoughts in chat about this, and chat is totally split. We've got 49% on yes and 51% on no. So people are really split so far on whether Microsoft should do this.
I've seen there's speculation that the PS5 Slim will come in at $399 US. I think I've even seen Tom Henderson kind of say that, although I could be wrong, Tom. Sorry if I am. That is a really aggressive price if true. If they can get the regular PS5 from $499 to $399, and basically undercut the Xbox Series X, which just had a price increase, and come in essentially $50 more expensive than the new Series S. Sony is very bullish on how many consoles they're going to sell in the next year, right? They're projecting something like 30 million or whatever it is, like the most ever in the history of consoles. And you're kind of like, how the hell are they going to get to that number? But I mean, if they were introducing a PS5 Slim and then cutting the price $100, and then a year later introducing like a Pro at $500, maybe Xbox might be caught. I don't know. At that point, Xbox would be like, it doesn't matter if it would be too important to the brand that like they would need to like slash price even if they didn't want to. I don't know. It's all interesting. It's all high level stuff. It'd be super interesting to see if the PlayStation could somehow do that, because then that makes the Xbox Series X look not as desirable, especially if it's $100 more expensive, and then like it maybe even makes the Series S not as desirable because now it's only $50 less, and it's like, well, for $50 more, I can get better hardware and all these first-party games. I don't know. It'd be an interesting challenge. Interesting challenge indeed. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
It'd be a major challenge to the platform, I think. But it kind of.
Drawn TJ in the Super Chat says Xbox doesn't have a hardware problem. They got a dev and tools problem. Start using the tools. And Croat CH, newest member of the channel. Thank you. Enjoy all the emotes and stuff.
I mean, there's this whole back and forth debate about this. Like I put out an article saying that the Series S is a problem because developers think it's speculating to some degree, but also not, because I spoke to a bunch of devs about this.
I saw your tweet about the I think it was to our buddy Hazador. I think he posted something. Shout out to Haz, great guy.
Yeah, Hazador's great.
And it was something about. Or maybe it was Idle Sloth. Either way, shout out to Idle Sloth.
It was Haz, I think.
It was Haz, but shout out to Idle Sloth and Haz. Love them both. It was a quote from Skill Up's podcast, right?
Yeah.
From Larian, which we need to get skill up on Xbox 2+1 at some point. You know him. You should reach out to him.
Yeah.
We should get him on there at some point.
Sure, awesome.
That'd be amazing if we could pull up. We do have Xbox 2+1 hopefully coming this month with a guest that a lot of people have wanted.
Yeah.
Just trying to lock down the date. Should be a lot of fun. Should be interesting conversations. So that'll be coming. And yeah, so because there's a lot of talk about the Series S of Baldur's Gate, right? Baldur's Gate's coming out on PC a month early. It's coming out on PlayStation, but it wasn't coming to Xbox. And people were like, what the F? Is this an exclusivity? And then they said there's no exclusivity. So people essentially complained enough to force Larian to say there's no exclusivity, but we're having problems with the split screen co-op of the game on the Series S. So that opened up this whole can of worms about the Series S holding back gaming, holding back the gen, right? And he was on the podcast and essentially said that the Series S isn't holding anything back. It's just that it requires more development things, right? What was the exact quote, Jazz? Something like that?
And he said like it doesn't hold things back, but it requires more resources or something.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and then I replied to Haz saying, isn't that the definition of holding things back?
No, that is not.
No, I disagree. If it requires more resources, because there's two different SKUs, for a developer that's small, like Larian and other developers that I spoke to, that creates friction. That creates friction. That is the definition of holding it back. Now, I don't know if like
no. I disagree with you. I disagree with you.
Shush, Rand.
All right. Get your point off. Go ahead. I still disagree, but go ahead.
The reset era definition of holding the gen back is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it holds the whole generation back. I'm saying it's a point of pain. It's a point of friction for developers of a certain size. And if you are weighing up the pros and cons of targeting PlayStation versus Xbox, do you target a smaller install base where you have two SKUs to account for, or do you target the bigger install base that only has one SKU to account for? It's pure.
Well, that's
math.
about to have two.
Pure economics. Huh?
That's about to have two.
Well, it's about to have two, but it doesn't right now, and that's not official. So that's just not that's a non-issue right now. That's a non-issue. So we're not talking about the PS5 Pro because it's not even fucking real right now. So we're talking about the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. Now, I'm not saying, for example, I'm not saying it was a bad strategy. I'm just talking about the hard, pragmatic reality that it creates a friction that isn't present on PlayStation. If we had a situation where Xbox had a similar amount of install base to PlayStation, rather than the 2-to-1 we have right now, it wouldn't be much of an issue. But because we do have this situation, and you're sort of like saying like, well, the Xbox Series S version is gonna, be the game that people experience the least, and also shows our game in the worst possible light, that to suggest that isn't friction is bullshit. Now, I'm not saying it holds the whole gen back. That's complete bullshit.
Well, that's what the guy said. So, I mean, you're disagreeing with what he said, but agreeing with what he said?
I'm not saying it holds the whole gen back, but that was never my argument.
Well, what was your tweet, though?
I was saying...
You said it sounds like it's holding it back. That's what you said, right? Requiring more work requires,
Yeah, holds them back, not the whole gen.
I don't think it holds it back. I think
no, but it does hold them back because the game is not launching it's not doing a simultaneous launch with PlayStation. So evidently, it has held back their game. I'm not saying it holds back the whole gen. It holds back their game. And it has held back their game, hence why it's not launching at the same time as PlayStation. To suggest otherwise is to deny reality. If it hadn't held back the game, it'd be launching day and date. Why is that controversial? That is literal reality. Is it not reality?
Right. Okay, so you're specifically talking, all right, maybe in that specific example I would agree. But I think maybe the overall example of... Because to me, when you say it holds back, it means that because the Series S exists, then we can't do certain things ever on these games. So that's when people talk about holding back the generation. It's like, we can't do this specific thing. Like the Horizon devs talked about the idea of like, well, we wanted to introduce flying into, the Horizon game, but they couldn't do it because of the PS4. And eventually, when they were untethered from the PS4 with like the new DLC or whatever it is, you can fly in the game. At least that was what they talked about. Like, there's this idea of like, okay, here's the Series X, here's its specs. We want to create this game, but because of the Series X, or because of the Series S rather, that we can't do something that we wanted to be able to do. Now, what they're saying is like, hey, we want to do split screen co-op, right, on the Series S and the Series X, and we're running into some issues, but it'll just require a little bit more work to get it running. It's not like it's not going to run. And that's pretty much what the guy said. It just essentially requires more work. I don't know. So I'm not really. Yeah, I'm not a tech guy.
It holds back their game.
Well,
it's held back their game.
It's held back their game in the sense that it won't be launching day one alongside the PlayStation version. Not that it's actually holding back their game.
But people bitch when there isn't parity.
Sure.
And we don't have parity right now because of the Xbox Series S. Well, and I'm not saying it's a bad strategy or the wrong strategy. I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation that Microsoft's put themselves in, and maybe it wasn't the right play. Maybe the right play was to go for a single SKU.
Maybe.
No.
Maybe
that was just my argument, man. People got really upset, and I'm not throwing the people who bought the Series S under the bus, but the central point is, it's on Microsoft to solve the issues that they've created. So if there is a situation where a major game like Baldur's Gate 3 is not launching simultaneously with the PlayStation, right? If there is a situation where that is happening, Microsoft should have been on that shit 6 months ago with a team to support Larian to stop that happening.
Sure, I mean, there's a conversation to be made about Xbox helping teams out. Like, they didn't help out Redfall devs, right? With the 60 FPS, it was too late. Right.
But that is what my article said. The point of the matter is that, and this is why I wrote in my article that people didn't read properly clearly, is that I wasn't attacking the Series S. I wasn't attacking people who bought Series S. I was attacking the situation that Microsoft has created for itself, where developers are not able to launch their games on Xbox because they have to account for this 2 SKU system, right? It is what it is, good or bad. Whatever. It's a downside, and it's it's the problem with fragmentation, and it's a problem with splitting the SKU in half. They can target a new audience, right? They can target a new audience with $300, but like, are we gonna have a PlayStation 5 that's $350 soon? That creates a problem. That creates a crisis, frankly. If you're going to have a console that's only $50 more expensive, but orders of magnitude more powerful, that creates a problem not just for Microsoft from an optics perspective, that creates a problem for Microsoft from a developer perspective, where again, developers will just be like, well, we can get more out of the PlayStation 5. Again, the PlayStation 5 ecosystem is easier for us. It's more profitable for us. Let's target that ecosystem instead. That's the argument I'm making. Is that not the reality of the situation? Tell me that's not the reality of the situation, and I'm wrong.
What, in regards to Baldur's Gate 3?
In regards to Baldur's Gate 3 and the next Baldur's Gate 3 and the next Baldur's Gate 3 and the next Baldur's Gate 3, because this isn't an isolated incident. It's not an isolated incident.
Well, I
think like when you're arguing as well for exclusive content, and you're going into discussions with Final Fantasy 16, Square Enix and stuff like that, and you're saying to them, who are already skeptical of you, for reasons undisclosed as of yet, please come to our ecosystem with our 2 SKU platform with half the install base. So it costs you more money to bring your game to our platform. It costs you more money because you have to test for 2 different types of platform, while also having access to less players potentially. Is that not a problem? So that's what the argument. That's the argument I'm getting at. Microsoft needs to do more to make sure that the parity can continue to happen as a result of the situation they put themselves in. They need to have a team ready to go 6 months before the game launches to make sure that Xbox customers are treated the same way as PlayStation customers. That's my only argument. Microsoft's created the bed. Microsoft's got to lie in it. Why should we have to deal with that? Why should we have to deal with the delayed games, man? That's my argument.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
And also, for the record, in my article about Square Enix, I said there's no sign of it changing anytime soon, which is also true. Thanks.
Oh, I see how it is now. Okay. I see how it is. Anyways. Okay, MechLord107 Super Chat says Dead Cells and Deep Rock Galactic are both awesome, and indeed they are. We have Ricardo. He says Microsoft makes a Series Pro, they can run Starfield at 4K 60 and FPS at playing whatever they charge for it. Nikki Bucket says, would the Xbox XS Pro add to dev issues too many consoles? I think that's something that would... Yeah, I mean, okay, like Jez just mentioned, you already have these two consoles. If you introduce a third one, is that too many? You know? Is that too many to target? Even though, like, last gen, they had to target the Xbox One, the One S, and the Xbox One X. This is
the dilemma. This is the crisis they find themselves in. Did they create a third SKU now to make things even worse for developers on its smaller platform? I think like the whole 2 SKU system hinged on them being able to keep up. Hinged on them being able to keep up with PlayStation, and evidently they haven't been able to. They haven't been able to match them on stock level, which I do think is a big issue. But we can't know for sure, definitively sure, why the install base isn't growing at the pace Microsoft expects it to, or whatever. They've just outsold the original Xbox in Japan, and they're on track to maybe beat the 360 in a few years. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's the sense like, hey, maybe 3 SKUs is too much, and we're not going to offer that. I don't know. We'll find out eventually. Jodicus says people will lose even more confidence if Microsoft support of the console platform or do not respond. More second-rate citizen thoughts. Lonzo86 is, if possible, PlayStation 4 was 2 teraflops, PS4 Pro was 4 teraflops, but all Xbox needs to do is make the S handheld. Let's see what else here we got. Second Coming says BG3 was delayed on Xbox to avoid Starfield. I mean, let's be honest here, Jez. If BG3 was coming out September 6th, it probably would just be dead on Xbox regardless because Starfield's releasing. Right?
But it doesn't matter. It's,
But if you were Larian and you're releasing your RPG the same day that Xbox is releasing Starfield...
But it's nothing to do with that. They've said it's the Series S is to blame. They literally said that. So it's a non-issue. It's not relevant.
But I'm saying that even if it wasn't the issue and even if it was ready, there's no way they'd be releasing the game on Xbox against Starfield because it would just... The whole user base. That's why Sony's not gonna release, or any you're not gonna release a Marvel game the same day as Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation, because that wouldn't be a good business decision. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Jax82. If they can't get these consoles out to run on these current consoles, I'm holding out on next gen, not until I get a full use out of it, and I'm an S owner. Let's see here. We have crippling debt saying people keep implying the X2 or the PS5 Pro is another SKU and more dev time to make a specific enhanced version. Yes, most devs will just unlock frame rate and run it at the Xbox, the PS5 version of the game. PMS Jordan says, Jazz, when are we doing Savage Raising together? Whatever that means.
Savage Raiding.
Savage Raiding. Well, she said raising, but yeah, Savage Raiding together.
Yeah, she mistyped.
Yeah. L. Paul, Jez, you cost me $5. If the PlayStation had S and X and Xbox had 1 SKU, you honestly think this holding back narrative would be an issue? It is now.
I mean, it's literally just because they themselves said, we are not launching a game in parity because of the 2 SKU system. You know, and this is going to, as we get further into the gen and more games target PlayStation 5 first, and even the higher end PlayStation 5, it's going to get increasingly the case that Microsoft will have to sort of like either ignore the Xbox Series S or spend money to shore up the Series S and help developers get their games running on that system because of the clause that says all games has to launch on both the Series S and the Series X, and the Series S presumably has the smallest install base. I don't know why people can't accept that isn't an issue. You know, as we get further into the gen and games get more demanding, we've already seen games struggle to hit 60 frames on the Series X, for God's sake. Starfield, 60 frames is not 60 frames per second on the Series X, and also Plague Tale Requiem, blah blah blah. This is just the beginning. You know, as two more years into the gen, you know, when are we expecting the next gen to come around? Like 2026, maybe
2028.
Well, yeah, the 2026 probably optimistic, but like, you know, as we get further into the gen, games are going to struggle more and more and more to run on the Series S. This is just the beginning. Baldur's Gate is just the beginning, you know. So people can either accept that or, you know, cry about it, I guess.
Lucia says Larian Studios is 431 employees. Is that small?
I mean, they themselves said they don't have the resources. So go and ask them.
Well, I mean, I would imagine 431 devs isn't a small studio.
Yeah, so would I. But they said they didn't have the resources.
Well, Tom
So if a
Henderson.
studio on that size doesn't have the resources, then GG.
Tom Henderson says in the chat the Series S is holding the gen back. So I guess there you go. So take that up with Tom Henderson. Jez, did you ban a bunch of people in chat?
Yeah.
Why?
Bad faith takes, bro.
You don't need to ban them. You can just time them out. I only really ban people for racist stuff or whatever. I don't mind people that have different opinions.
Yeah, whatever.
Come on, bro. This isn't Twitter where you can block whoever you want. This is my YouTube channel. You know what I mean?
You can unblock them, bro.
Oh, well, that requires me to go and find their names and unblock them in the YouTube thing. Just you know, unless they're personally attacking you, don't ban people. Just time them out. Bob says I do not think it's the gameplay itself. If co-op gaming is the issue with BG3's, Xbox-owned studios could not get co-op to work. Okay. Jack says this is a console issue or dev issue or both. I don't know. Tom Anderson says Series S is a gamble Microsoft took and it just didn't pay off. Potentially. I think I think maybe if the Series S got down to $199 and they had like a library of great games, maybe you could see with the Series S like why it exists in that manner. But you know, I don't know how long it would take to get to $199, and I don't know if it would ever get to $199. And so I think, especially if PlayStation's also going to be very price aggressive in the future, maybe that's where the Series S shines. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, moving on from that, let's talk about the Final Fantasy stuff, Jez. Shall we?
Sure.
So, what was going on? So there was a event in Vegas or something, right? A Final Fantasy 14 event?
Yeah, I mean, what was it exactly? It was the Final Fantasy 14 Fan Festival, they call it. And we were covering it. You know, Windows Central was covering it. We cover Final Fantasy 14, even though it's not on Xbox, it's on PC. It's quite popular on PC. So we do cover Final Fantasy on the site, Final Fantasy 14. It's the only other credible MMO worth playing, in my view, other than World of Warcraft. Very good game. You know, I don't have time for both of them, so I generally play WoW more. But it's a very good game, and they were announcing a bunch of new stuff. They announced a new expansion called Dawn Trail, if I remember correctly. They teased a bunch of stuff for it. It's going to be a more light-hearted expansion after the last few apocalyptic in measure. So this is going to be a more traditional Final Fantasy adventure. There's going to be a bunch of new classes, a bunch of new features, and all that kind of stuff. And then out of the blue, none other than Phil Spencer comes waltzing out on stage like Phil McMahon, like Vince McMahon, and joins Yoshi P and the Square Enix CEO, whose name escapes me at the moment, to announce a bunch of stuff. So the first thing they announced was Final Fantasy 14 is finally coming to Xbox after Phil sort of confirmed it
in 2019. Yeah, XO 2019 when Square was on stage, basically bringing all the Final Fantasy games to Game Pass. Yeah, XO 2019.
Yeah, so I don't think Phil was meant to say that because Square Enix kind of walked it back since then, and they were saying things like we don't have time to do it right now, server capacity is not where it needs to be, kind of stuff like that. So they kind of walked it back over the years. And then we started seeing games from Square Enix repeatedly miss Xbox. So we saw Final Fantasy 7 Remake miss Xbox, we've seen Final Fantasy 16 miss Xbox, we've seen Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters miss Xbox, and we've also, a bunch of other games missed Xbox, but we did get some table scraps. We got Crisis Core, we got Strangers of Paradise from the firm and stuff like that. But it started creating this sort of expectation of doubt about Square Enix, because obviously Square Enix makes a lot of beloved games, and I'd heard that there'd been some pretty high profile falling out between Square Enix and Microsoft from a very, very good source that I trust very, very much, and a proven repeatedly to me over the years. A lot of the information that I've put out there that has turned out to be accurate is from some of these sources. So I put that out there, and because I was kind of frustrated when they announced, like, I can understand Final Fantasy 7 Remake not coming to Xbox because Sony bought up exclusivity, whatever. I can understand Final Fantasy 16 not coming again because they bought up exclusivity. But Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters, the remakes, or whatever you call them, those not coming to Xbox, that just felt like, okay, well, there's something really going on here. So I started asking my sources, and that's when I came about this information that something was functionally wrong between Xbox and Square Enix. So I put that out there, and I spoke to, every time I speak to people from Microsoft at events and stuff, they'd always come back to me with, we're working on it, and you don't know if they actually mean they're definitely they're going to be able to do something or not. Like, they mean it in good faith, we're trying kind of thing, but you don't expect that anything will come of it. But lo and behold, Phil Spencer was on stage, not only to announce Final Fantasy 14's coming to Xbox in 2024, but also literally shaking hands with the CEO, shaking hands with Yoshi P, and basically saying, whenever possible, caveat, whenever possible, we're going to be bringing more Square Enix's games to Xbox. Now, that, until we see the proof in the pudding, that could mean anything. It doesn't mean we're going to suddenly get Final Fantasy 7 Remake, although personally, I believe that we will get Final Fantasy 7 Remake now. It doesn't mean we're going to get Final Fantasy 16, although I expect once the deal expires, we probably will get Final Fantasy 16 eventually. How the form these deals take remains to be seen. Will they be on Game Pass? Will they just be general releases? But yeah, I think clearly the fact they had a new CEO in June was a great opportunity to reset relations with the firm. And now it looks like finally we could be heading back to a better times between Square Enix and Microsoft. So
yeah, it was a big surprise. I mean, it was a big surprise. Because that relationship with Square Enix is kind of the one relationship in Japan is kind of just like, man, what's going on there? It seemed to be good for a bit, right? They were bringing all the Final Fantasy games to Game Pass, and then it was like Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Okay, 1 year exclusivity, and then the 1 year exclusivity comes and goes, and it's like, it's not there. And then 2 years later, and it was like, oh, maybe it's this year, and then it's gone, and it's like, wait a minute. and then Final Fantasy 16 being exclusive, games skipping, Octopath Traveler coming to the platform, but not Octopath Traveler 2. There's just like weird choices where you get Crisis Core, but then you don't get, Final Fantasy 7. You get Octopath Traveler, but not the sequel, right? And it's just like, okay, something's going on there. Especially in a time where it seems Xbox's relationship with Capcom is at its best, right? Capcom's even delivering games day one on Game Pass, like Exoprimal and Path of the Goddess. You have Sega, and their relationship seems really strong at this point, right? You got the Persona games all coming to Xbox. Hell, you got the Persona games basically marketed with Xbox now. You got the Yakuza games on Xbox. Things I never thought would happen 5 years ago, right? So it's like, all right, we're buffing up our Japanese support. And it seemed like at the time when they were doing that, they were losing the support of Square Enix for whatever reason. And, this old CEO leaves, new CEO's in place, and suddenly Phil Spencer's on stage with Yoshi P and the new CEO basically pledging support for Xbox. I mean, Phil said on Twitter, enjoyed being on stage with Yoshi P and Kuro-san to announce Final Fantasy 14 coming to Xbox. We're thrilled that the Xbox community will join the Warriors of Light, and we look forward to partnering closely with Square Enix on future games, right? So, I mean, what does that mean? Is something like the rumored Final Fantasy IX remaster remake by Jeff Grubb, is that actually going to come to Xbox day one? I mean, if so, does that mean like things have changed, or is Final Fantasy IX remake just a game that was going to be on Xbox anyways because Sony didn't want to buy it? Is Kingdom Hearts 4, because that game's announced, but I don't think consoles have been announced for, is Kingdom Hearts 4 going to be on the because you figured like, all right, if Sony locked up Final Fantasy 7 remake and Final Fantasy 16, maybe they would try for Kingdom Hearts 4, because they had 1 and 2 exclusive for a bit, and then 3 wasn't. But then it's like, all right, well, maybe we go get exclusivity for 4, but now it's like, well, maybe 4 will just be multi-platform. Maybe you see Octopath Traveler 2 come to Xbox. I would imagine that's one of the first games maybe you could potentially do. You can bring over Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, because I doubt anybody paid for exclusivity for that. I think it would be dumb for Sony or anybody to be like, we're going to pay you money so you don't put this on Xbox. So maybe they bring that over. Maybe some of the other titles that miss, like the Legend of Mana games or something, like those smaller JRPGs, maybe they bring over. But it does seem like this maybe is that the healing of the relationship between the two. Where it's like you have old leadership out, the ones that made the deals with PlayStation, and now you have new leadership out, and maybe they have a different vision of exclusivity, of how they want to sell their games and who they want to sell their games to, and what type of money they want to take in for exclusivity deals and things of that nature. Maybe they feel it's limited Final Fantasy by being only on PlayStation. Maybe it would be better being like, hey, it's better if it was day one everywhere. It would be better if Final Fantasy 16 was day one on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Maybe it would reach higher numbers than it did. So maybe they rethinking some of that stuff. And Phil comes in. I don't know if like they're like, hey, we'll throw you some Game Pass money or whatever. But no, I mean this is a good thing. I think. Final Fantasy 14 coming to platform. I don't care personally. I don't really care for MMOs, but hey, I'm excited for any Xbox fans that wants to check it out, that wants to play it. Even though it's been around for 10 years at this point, or however long Final Fantasy 14's been out for. You can play it on PC, you can play it on PlayStation, but it's a good first step. It's a good healing of the relationship. All right, here we're pledging support. Here's Final Fantasy 14. I'm sure other games will come. And then you look at the two most recent ones, like Final Fantasy 7 Remake and 16. I believe they'll come now. I think 16 will come before 7, though. I think it all depends on contracts, right? That whole wherever possible, because I think they can't put Final Fantasy 16 on Xbox because Sony paid for exclusivity for it. But I think when that exclusivity contract's up, yeah, I think it'll come to Xbox. And with Final Fantasy 7 Remake, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony probably has bought out the entire trilogy. So I think you could see that trilogy, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth. I think maybe all those come essentially when those 3 games are done and dusted on PlayStation and they can make their way over, right?
I think you might see Final Fantasy VII Remake before then.
Well, maybe. I'm just saying it all depends on the contracts. It all depends on how long Sony bought exclusivity for, right? If they wanted to buy exclusivity for the entire length of the trilogy, then that's how long it would be. But I personally think 16 will come first. Because
is it confirmed to be a trilogy?
Yes, the Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff. Yeah, it's confirmed to be a trilogy.
Man, I've like over time, Final Fantasy VII's really grown on me. Like I did review it highly. When I reviewed Final Fantasy VII's the only PlayStation game I've ever reviewed in my life, and I think I gave it 9 out of 10. But like I didn't dock points for this reason because I felt like this was a personal opinion. I really didn't like the ending. I think I've spoken on here about it before, but after I played through it again recently on the Asus ROG Alloy because it runs flawlessly on that thing, 60 frames, 1080p, gorgeous. Intergrade, like I really started really liking it way more with Intergrade and like the combat system as well, super satisfying. So I'd love to see all those games hit Xbox. I really would. I just kind of it just sucks as a fan, a Final Fantasy fan, that you can't play the games you want to play where you want to play them. Like obviously they always come to PC after the fact, you know.
But even still, you have to wait.
Even still, yeah, you have to wait. And while they do get there eventually, I think Final Fantasy VII had issues at launch, which are fixed now, at least, super polished and stuff. But obviously, Xbox is my main platform, and I would prefer always to be able to play them on Xbox. And it's just nice to know that they've worked really hard on trying to fix this stuff, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly this was something they've been working on behind the scenes for a while. This isn't something that just happens overnight. This is something that they've been, working towards because they know it's important, right? Square Enix.
Let me ask you this then.
What?
Let me ask you this. So they've got TGS coming up. Microsoft's going to be at TGS, presumably Phil as well, and they are pushing hard with trying to. I don't think they're deluded enough to think that they'll ever be able to truly supplant Nintendo or PlayStation in Japan. But it does seem like they're taking the region a lot more seriously, if for no reason other than to get Western fans of Japanese games the titles they want. Do you think they announce any of the upcoming deals with Square Enix at TGS?
Maybe you could see, like, I don't know, is Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster something like a Gamescom announcement? Or Octopath Traveler 2?
Well, they're also at Gamescom, of course. So Gamescom's coming up on August the 22nd, I want to say off the top of my head. I actually got invited to Gamescom Live on, what is it called?
Oh, with the Keeley? With Keeley?
Yeah, I've been invited to the European Keeleys, so that's going to be fun. So I'll be there on the night, presumably, to hang out and check the stuff out, and I'll report on it when I get back to my hotel room. But yeah, so I'll be there. But I think Gamescom is going to be dedicated to games that have European appeal, like maybe Flight Simulator, maybe what's it called now off the top of my head? Ara History Untold, which there's some indication that Ara History Untold has been delayed to 2024.
Yeah, like the website was updated. It says coming 2024, which we expected that, right?
Yeah, not entirely unexpected, no. So Ara History Untold's probably been delayed, but maybe they'll announce the delay formally at Gamescom and also give us a deeper dive look at the gameplay. It's got an insider program, and the insider program's been going on for quite some time, and the game looks really good. I'm a 4X strategy guy, especially turn-based, so I'm looking forward to that game quite a lot. I don't know why it's not in the Age of Empires franchise, though. I can appreciate the devs wanting to do their own thing, but it feels like a missed opportunity for them as well, just to slap Age of Empires on it, and you would have immediately had an audience, rather than having to try and explain to people what it is.
Stalker 2 is going to be playable at Gamescom.
Yeah, so Stalker 2 is going to be playable.
Do you think Stalker 2 comes this year? Or is that maybe early next year?
I think it could be a February game. maybe, but it's no way to know for sure. Presumably they'll announce that at Gamescom as well if it's playable.
Towerborn's playable,
Forza,
right? As well.
Towerborn's playable, so maybe we get more Towerborn information, and Forza's going to be playable as well, supposedly. So maybe we get more Forza information.
You think Towerborn's early next year?
I think so.
Because
yeah.
wasn't it? I don't know if you had said this, but weren't you saying that there was a possibility it could have been this fall, but it got moved?
Yeah, like Towerborn. I think before the pandemic, Towerborn was actually targeting spring of this year. So like I had some very early documents and what their plans were and their timelines were and stuff like that. But obviously I didn't hit those. I guess pandemic partially to blame or whatever. But we're there now, and it seems like Towerborn's close to being ready. But maybe they announce a launch window at Gamescom and stuff. But I don't think they'd do the Square Enix stuff at Gamescom. I think they'd do that at TGS. If you are sort of you wanting to appeal to Japanese gamers and fans, Western fans of Japanese games, of which there are many, and I count myself among them. Those wonderful, wonderful people. That's a TGS thing, I would think. But maybe you do a little bit of Japan in a Gamescom as well, just to remind the European audience that Xbox is at least trying their best. Maybe. Because obviously there's a lot of fans of Japanese games in Europe as well. And it's one of the things they often get criticized for. So maybe they do a bit of both. Presumably they've got a lot to show. They'll have a lot to show, and it's not just the Keighley event there. There's also going to be a Future Game Show event there. So I think Microsoft has done Game Pass stuff there in the past. That Future Game Show is obviously my company, even though we're never really involved in that show specifically. I'd like to be though, if they want to reach out sometime. But yeah, there's just a ton of stuff. I was saying on Twitter, that my personal complaints about the Xbox, concerns about the Xbox ecosystem from a content perspective, they're pretty much dead now. I don't really have any concerns anymore about content. We've seen what Bethesda can do. Starfield looks incredible. We've seen what some of their acquired studios are cooking, and they all look incredible. InXR looks like it's stepped up to the next level, and if all the other studios can step up in that kind of way, then I'm pretty excited about what they got cooking, yeah? And then you've got Blizzard games. Some of those might be exclusive. You even think the survival game might be exclusive, Odyssey.
Yeah.
I disagree. Maybe we could do a bet on that.
We could do a bet on it, but I'm not eating a chip.
Yeah, well...
I mean, I don't feel that strongly about it, but I do feel like...
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we need to find a bet that you will feel strongly about before we start pulling out chips and stuff like that. But I personally don't think that game will be exclusive. I could be wrong, but we'll see. But yeah, the content-wise, I think Xbox is pretty... With Square Enix back on board, I don't really care about Konami. I know like they've got Silent Hill coming and some of them are exclusive. I don't think Konami's going to do Silent Hill justice. Could be totally wrong, but again, pessimism, whatever. So I'm not really that concerned.
You're pessimistic about a lot of stuff. What are you really optimistic about?
Damn, that's a good question. I'm optimistic about Blizzard right now, which is weird because usually I'm not optimistic about Blizzard. I think Blizzard's been doing an amazing job recently. Maybe not so much with Overwatch. But I think they'll take the feedback about Diablo on board, and I think Season 2 will be a lot different, a lot better. So I'm not too concerned about Diablo yet. But World of Warcraft's been absolutely popping off, and I'm like, they've got Chris Metzen back. Did you know this? Chris Metzen, who worked on Warcraft since forever, he recently rejoined Blizzard, and you can already feel his presence within the writing of the game. So I'm like hyper optimistic about World of Warcraft right now. But yeah, not a huge amount of optimism in general about life, I suppose. That's just my way. It's just my way, Ren.
Yeah.
It's just my way.
Okay. I mean, you just said like you have no complaints about the content that's coming. Everything's shored up with Square and everything, so you're good on that, right? Essentially what you said.
Yeah. I think there'll still be gaps. I think Sony will still win out some exclusives, but like if I could just get Pixel remasters, Final Fantasy VII someday, I'd be. Dude,
you're gonna get. All right, can I just say this? You'll get the Final Fantasy VII Pixel remaster, and you won't even barely play it.
Dude,
let's be honest with ourselves here, Jez.
No,
Let's be honest with ourselves.
Let's not be honest, because I have been playing Final Fantasy VI on my Asus ROG Ally, and I've got like 25 hours in it.
Yeah, but nothing, bro.
Over the last couple of weeks.
I'm just saying. Come on now. Come on. Let's be.
Hey,
it's August. How's Persona 5 coming along?
We don't talk about Persona 5.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying.
We don't talk about Persona 5.
I know how you are. You literally put out a tweet being like, every 5 or 10 minutes, my brain tells me to play a different game.
Yeah, well,
right?
I want to play a different Final Fantasy. Every 5 or 10 minutes.
You know how many games are coming out this year? And let's just say the Pixel remaster came to Xbox. You would start playing it, and then you would put it in your backlog 5 minutes later.
Yeah, but then I'd pick it up again.
No, you wouldn't.
Later.
No, you wouldn't. Come on, Jez. Be truthful with yourself. Come on. Be truthful. Are you actually going to finish Final Fantasy VI?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Okay, you have a month to do it. I'm not giving you to the end of the year like I gave you Persona. You got 1 month. I'll give you 2 months because I know Starfield's coming and you are the reviewer on Starfield. I'll give you an extra month. I'll give you 2 months.
I actually don't know if I am reviewing Starfield because I'll be at Gamescom now.
Oh, okay.
Because I wasn't actually planning to go to Gamescom, so I might not be me reviewing Starfield, but we'll see. We'll figure it out.
Shout out to Dave Ramos, newest member of the channel. Appreciate you. We have Elijah Vasquez with a member for 11 months. He says, we often hear that Xbox treats European consumers as second-class citizens. Why do you think Microsoft does this? Do you think we will see Microsoft start to care?
I don't know if I agree that they're treated as second class.
I don't think so. I think Europe treats Xbox as a second-class console.
What do you mean?
I mean, what I mean by that is in Europe, it's Nintendo or PlayStation, and Xbox is viewed completely differently, and you can see this at the sales for that.
Yeah,
right. I think a lot of I know there's a lot of people get like their whole rewards program and how it's always in the U.S. but maybe not other countries. I think that's more like legal issues than not wanting to do it in other countries or whatever.
There are some legal issues with Xbox, like the data protection. The European Union data protection rules are very, very, very aggressive, and every country in Europe has its own rules. And I suppose, it's much like with the Series S and the arguments I was making earlier. It's like, where are the resources best spent? Which is why you often see Microsoft prioritize Germany, France, UK, and then a lot of the smaller countries like, Finland smaller markets, I would say, not smaller countries necessarily, but smaller markets for them, like, Belgium or Finland or countries like Croatia even or Poland. Even though these are big markets, they're not huge markets for Xbox. So which is why we often see they don't have the kind of support that these regions deserve with regards to localization. It's something we complain about a lot to try and get them to fix. Because theoretically they can't afford it, and Sony on the other hand actually does do a good job of supporting these extra regions and stuff. It's just pure economics at the end of the day, and it's why some devs don't prioritize the Series S. It's pure economics for them, and we just have to keep banging the drum and hope that Microsoft changes its tune at some point.
Yeah. Let's see. We have the poll, Jez. So we have 1,000 votes. I'm gonna end the poll, and it's a lot more split this time, Jez. 1,000 votes. And no won at 51%, and yes at 48%. So it's crept up to be 50-50. I would imagine this poll would be completely different once the PS5 Pro is announced, and I believe Tom Henderson. So when it comes out, I bet you this thing starts going widely in the yes direction. But yeah, interesting to see how it's already sort of shifted. By the way, if you guys are enjoying the show, hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't there yet already. And, don't be mad at Jez. He's just pessimistic and contrarian in real life. Don't be
I'm
upset.
not contrarian.
Don't be upset with him.
I'm literally not contrarian. Contrarian is where you can't even make a good point.
No, it just means that you just go against, what's popular just to,
Is that why
just
I like
the opposite
Xbox
point.
on PlayStation? Doesn't that make you a contrarian? Because why do you prefer Xbox over PlayStation then?
I'm not a contrarian.
Maybe you're a contrarian.
I'm not a contrarian. Anyways, Let's talk about this Sega tease, shall we? Since we're staying over in Japan, we talked about Square Enix and Xbox healing their relationship, which could potentially bring us, the Final Fantasy games that aren't on. It's great to see. And Sega and Microsoft's relationship is very good, right? Some would say maybe really, really good, right? They're partnering for the Super game, whatever that's going to be. We got Persona on Xbox, and we have Yakuza. And we know for a fact that Xbox, Phil Spencer wanted to acquire Sega. Authorization. That's what Phil wanted from Satya and Amy Hood, to get the authorization to approach them for an acquisition. I forget what year. I don't know what happened, but they eventually got ABK because it hit up all the things they needed. Mobile, PC with Blizzard. We've talked about that. But a lot of Xbox fans believe that Microsoft has been teasing a Sega acquisition on social media through their Microsoft Edge advertisements with the Edgehog, where you got this little tiny hedgehog rolling around Microsoft Studios, taking pictures in Xbox, right in front of the Gamepass sign, doing all these things. And, you combine that with the fact that Xbox wanted to acquire them, or at least at one point, and all these sort of things in their relationships. Now it's just like people feel that Microsoft is intentionally teasing this acquisition on social media. Jazz, what do you think?
Well, the Edgehog stuff was fun.
Edgehog.
Like, it's for Microsoft Edge. So Microsoft Edge is Microsoft's Chrome browser. It is literally Chrome with a different shell. But nobody wants to use it. Microsoft really wants people to use it. So what they do is they use in-OS ads to try and push it. Everyone really hates that. So they've come up with a better way, which is through a hedgehog. A cute hedgehog is how they're going to bring Microsoft Edge to the masses. I personally think it's a much better plan than trying to force it on people through Windows. But it's not to tease a major acquisition. It's just a cute little hedgehog that has just sounds like Microsoft Edge. It is sadly not anything to do with that. But people like their conspiracies.
I mean, let's be. People love their conspiracies because I don't think Microsoft's done buying a publisher. There, I said it. I don't think they're done, bro. I'm not saying it'll happen right away once ABK closes, but I don't think they're done, and I think Sega could be on the shopping menu.
I agree.
Because I still think what Sega offers you, even though it's not sexy for me personally, but I think what Sega offers and what they outlined in their acquisition proposal still is something that Microsoft and Xbox would want, like the legacy IP, right? The Sonic, the PC developers, with Creative Assembly and who's the one? No, Creative Assembly is the one that's currently making Hyenas. Certain Affinity. No, Certain Affinity is not owned by them.
No.
It's Creative Assembly
and
Relic are owned by Sega.
Yes.
Yes. So you have the PC developers, you have legacy IP, you have the Japanese presence with Yakuza. And so it still makes a lot of sense, especially for Game Pass and PC. They just, I think, are about to acquire Rovio for the Angry Birds, so there's more your mobile push. I still think Sega makes
Sony acquiring them.
No, Sega's acquiring them. Did I say Sony? I meant Sega.
No. I meant Sega. I didn't know Sega was acquiring them, or I forgot or something.
Yeah, Sega's acquiring Rovio. Take-Two was the one that acquired Zig. I always get people make fun of me. Is it Zigna or Zignia? I forget.
It's Zynga, I think.
Zynga, Take-Two acquired them. Sega acquired Rovio. Xbox is acquiring King. So I still think it makes all the sense in the world at some point after. Because, Phil talked about it. They're not going to stop acquiring because Big Bad Techland. Well, not Big Bad Techland, but Big Bad Tencent. They just came out and acquired a majority share in Techland, 60-some-odd%. You don't really see a lot of concern about Tencent these days because everybody's people who don't like the ABK deal, oh god, Microsoft monopoly, they're going to destroy everything, and then here's Tencent literally buying up everything, and nobody really talks about it, right? So and Phil mentioned like, hey, we're gonna keep on acquiring. Sony's gonna acquire. Sony recently had a job listing where they want to hire somebody for inorganic acquisitions, right? To get that sort of ball rolling. So
inorganic. What's an inorganic acquisition?
I mean, an inorganic acquisition is basically like, hey, we want to buy a studio that we've never worked with. Like a lot of people, that's what a lot of people who don't like Xbox and they don't like the moves Xbox is making always levy is like, well, Sony makes organic acquisitions, Rand, and Microsoft is just, they're just big and bad. Why would you buy that? Like, they don't even work with them. Sony's the one who cultivates. Sony's the one who's like, okay, we'll work with you for 2 games, and then we'll buy them. They help out, where Microsoft just takes and takes and takes, right? That's what they'll say.
Some of the takes I've seen about Microsoft being with Square Enix on stage, like, they're so like, people sound so defeated. Like, I'm not going to name names, but I saw some streams where the guy was like, oh man, Microsoft's just going to keep spending and spending and spending.
Good.
There's nothing we can do.
Good.
Like, why are you so invested in this shit, man? I don't know.
Anyways, but this whole PlayStation like virtuous thing, like organic, like it matters, right? But that's the whole thing. Is like Sony worked with some of their devs and then they bought them, but it really a lot of their stuff recently is like, oh, it's not really organic. Like buying Bungie, not really organic. Buying Haven, not really organic, right? Whatever. But that's the thing is like, oh, Xbox is doing it. Oh, blah, right? It's not organic, right? It's like that matters, like why you would do it or whatever. But either way, but a lot of people are up in arms against the ABK thing, and you know they're not really talking about Tencent. But when it comes down to Sega, like, look, Microsoft is not going to tease any acquisition on social media. Period. End of story.
No.
Right? They are very follow the law, the letter of the law. Right? They are not going to do that. You know, you could get insider trading, get all that sort of stuff. That's not something. So, and the edge social media managers aren't going to know about an Xbox acquisition of Sega. It's just not going to happen. Those are high level talks. So, while I do believe Sega is absolutely going to be a target of Xboxes after the ABK thing's done, this certainly is not going to be. This certainly not meant as a tease to acquire them, right? So, yeah, Xbox isn't finished. They're gonna acquire more stuff, whether it's Sega or smaller teams. It's just funny to see, right? Because people had this whole theory when Xbox was putting out the blue controller and the red controller. You remember, like Sonic and Knuckles and stuff. So this is the thing that's been going on for a while, and then we just, you found out recently that it was true. They were looking at acquiring them, like. So
it's all just coincidences. They work closely with Sega, so obviously they're going to do social media stuff with Sega, and like this what do they call it? Sega Super Game uses Azure servers, so they're completely working really closely with Sega. There's going to be a bunch of Gamepass in tie-ins and Azure services being used and all this kind of stuff. So obviously they're going to be doing a lot of stuff with Sega. And anything that pertains to an acquisition is going to be the result of pure coincidence. Like, if they do come out and be like, yeah, we've entered an agreement to buy 1 million bajillion Sega shares at this price, whatever, that's nothing to do with them teasing on social media. That's pure coincidence. But it's fun to pretend. I think a lot of people are just having fun with it. I don't think many people actually believe that.
I mean, you'd be surprised, bro. You'd be surprised how many
Really?
people believe a lot of stuff. Yes,
Really?
100%.
So?
Bro, remember those fake E3 Xbox showcase leaks? The one that even I made up? You know how many DMs and messages I got from people thinking that was real? Yes, bro. Yes, 100% people believe it. Yes. Never doubt what people will believe. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
fair enough.
Yeah. But I mean, Sarah Bond's constantly, taking pictures and, I mean, that super game that they're supposedly working on together, I wouldn't be surprised if that has like acquisition hooks in it for certain things. So, yeah, I think Sega's out still on the menu. I know Everborn Saga loves to hear that. Although it would be kind of funny if like Sony does their inorganic growth guy, they hire him, and then Sony buys Sega before Microsoft could. I wonder how Everborn Saga would feel about that if that did happen. But either way, or maybe it's Square Enix that's on the menu, Jez. with salvaging their relationship with them. Maybe Microsoft takes a look at Square Enix and is like, because they did want them too. And if they're like, maybe we could get Square, so it ain't over. I mean, if you hated the fact that they got ABK and that really bothered you, if you're a PlayStation, dude who does 5-hour podcasts talking about Xbox all the time, then I don't know what else to say to you, other than like, hey, I hope the money's great. You don't see me and Jez doing 5-hour podcasts about PlayStation every week.
No.
Because we don't need to.
I don't follow PlayStation enough to be able to do that. I mean, a lot of times we talk about PlayStation, it's in relation to things they're doing too, or ways they affect Xbox. Because let's face it, the things that Xbox doesn't really affect PlayStation in the same way that PlayStation's exclusivity deals affect Xbox. Like Microsoft they can do a Gamepass deal, but that's not really going to move the needle. They bought Bethesda, sure, but that was like ages ago at this point. But so like, if it was me, I'd just be like, I wouldn't even be thinking about Starfield anymore. If I was someone who's that dead set on not getting an Xbox, I wouldn't be podcasting about Starfield. I wouldn't be thinking like, oh god, is Starfield going to be great? Here's why Starfield's going to suck, and do all this copium, it wouldn't even cross my mind. I'm not thinking about Spider-Man right now because well, I'll get on PC if I'm really that interested in it, but I'm just not interested in superhero stuff. One thing I would be interested about is Final Fantasy 16, because a lot of people say that even though the base game was easy, which is what put me off, I've seen a lot of people say that when you do New Game Plus on the higher difficulty, it actually becomes amazing.
Well,
so, I'm like
one of the complaints. Yeah, but you got to go through the whole game. One of the complaints about Final Fantasy is that it's too easy, right?
Yeah.
Even on the norm, and it is. It's too easy. But once you beat the game, you can use Final Fantasy mode, which makes it harder. So yeah, but it's like you already played through the game once, and it's not like the game's short.
Yeah, I get you.
I mean, Jez, you have hard enough time beating the game once, let alone twice. You know what I mean?
You're mean, bro.
I'm just you could make fun of me all day for sleeping. Matt says, "What do you call this then? Literally pot calling kettle black." Well, I don't know. This is an Xbox podcast where we talk about Xbox 95% of the time. I don't think we've ever done a show where we literally only talked about PlayStation. And even when we do talk about PlayStation, we don't even really complain about them. I mean, I like making fun of Jim Ryan and the quotes they said about like the ABK deal because they were ridiculous, and the regulators absolutely agreed with that statement. But no, we don't talk about PlayStation very much in the same way where it's like,
we don't attack PlayStation. We defend Xbox. And the problem is a lot of people take that as an attack on PlayStation.
Yeah, well, Jazz, I mean, a lot of people in chat are saying you're attacking Xbox. And even today, like, people were like mad at Jez for his article and mad at Jez's take on the Series S, where they're calling him a ponybot. Like, Jez, a ponybot? Are you serious? Get out of here.
Ponybot?
I don't know. Ponybot's just like a term people made up. But no, we definitely do not do the same thing, and we have never done the same thing. So yeah, I saw that. I'm like, huh. And anybody who regularly listens to the show knows it. So no, we don't. Sorry. I completely disagree with you.
I'm planning to get a PlayStation 5 Slim without the disc drive if they do that. Because one of my issues with the PlayStation was it was too big, and I couldn't fit it in my room. But I've rearranged all my furniture. I've actually bought new furniture so I could get more stuff in. And then it's kind of like, well, Tom Henderson's teasing that they're going to do a new one. So it's like, do I wait for that now? Because there are PlayStation games I want to play, and I do prefer to play games on console.
Well, you can play them on PC. They're coming to PC.
Well,
Ratchet and Clank just came to PC.
Yeah. But my PC is getting long in the tooth now. I got an RTX 2070, and I'm 2 generations behind, and it's starting to struggle. It's starting to struggle with some of the more modern games. It struggled with God of War to some degree. Now, the Asus ROG Ally runs God of War really well. It runs 60 frames, fine. But it can't run Ratchet and Clank. I tried Ratchet and Clank yesterday, actually, and it gave me blue screens of death. And that's a driver thing, I need to wait for AMD to update their drivers, this is one annoying thing about AMD is that their driver updates are slower than NVIDIA for a lot of stuff. But I'd rather just not have to deal with that. I'd rather just plug the game in and then it works, where applicable. And that's kind of why I prefer to have a PlayStation. So I will get a PlayStation eventually, I think.
Right.
There's almost no reason not to if they're going to be cheaper and smaller when they do announce that.
Well, I don't think it's going to be that much smaller. I could have sworn I read something from Tom where it was like the difference in size isn't going to be like drastic or anything. So we'll have to wait and see when that's
it's an excuse to get one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean I probably won't get one because I don't play enough on my PlayStation, but whatever. Adam,
I did that with the PS4 Pro. I bought a PS4. I didn't buy the original PlayStation, but I did buy a PS4 Pro after the fact.
Adam F, member for 21 months, says, "What do y'all think about Destin's interview with Colin? He contradicted himself a lot. Just a lot of Game Pass hate, and Xbox hasn't earned it talk." I didn't listen to that interview, so I don't really have an opinion on it because I didn't watch it. So, yeah, Colin is very much controversial. A lot of people clip what he says and stuff. So, yeah, we have some other things I want to super chats I want to get to because I missed out on some of them. Let me refresh this page. We have Dragon Knight 77. Could Persona 6 be revealed at TGS on the MS stage? Well, they're not going to have a stage. Well, no, I don't. Are they going to have a stage at TGS? I doubt it. Right? They'll be there, but I don't think they'll have a show. No, Persona 6 will be revealed at either a PlayStation show or an Xbox show, and I don't think it's going to be revealed this year because they still have Persona 3 Remake and the Persona 5 Tactics, so I don't really see them announcing Persona 6 yet. And I still think that game's probably a couple years away anyways. So no, I don't see them announcing it this year. And if anything, I mean, yeah, you could probably say, oh man, they're going to announce it with Xbox because all the recent games have been, and maybe that does happen, but I don't know. Part of me thinks Persona 6 will be revealed with PlayStation. PMS Jordan says, Rand, there's thousands of achievements in Final Fantasy XIV. You're going for them when it comes out on Xbox? One, PMS Jordan, I'm not playing it when it comes to Xbox because I don't play MMOs. And two, I don't really go for achievements anymore like that. I've kind of retired in that sense. So, no, I'm not. Number one, I'm not playing the game, so I won't be getting any of them. And there's nothing you can do to make me play the game. So, yeah. Silly Mikey says, PS5 Pro and possibly a next-gen Nintendo Switch in 2024. Definitely seems like Microsoft will be left out to dry next year. I mean, yeah, there are talk about the some studios have the next-gen Switch device in hand.
That's another point.
Targeting a 2024 release.
I mean, it's going to be weird because it'll almost be like, half of a new gen in a way.
Not really.
Because you're going to have, and not really, but kind of. Microsoft won't be part of a major hardware narrative that year, which is weird. I don't know.
Well, what if they came out with a mid-gen upgrade the following year like they did with the One X?
I mean, they could do that. But we'll see. I mean, PlayStation 4 Pro was a year after the One X, unless I'm going
year
mad.
before.
Year before?
Mm-hmm. PlayStation 4 Pro was 2016. One X was 2017, so yeah. I mean, obviously, the Nintendo Switch it's going to be, next year, it'll be 7 years. Obviously, there's going to be a new one. Maybe they launch it March of 2024, just like they launched the last one March of 2017.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do with that. Jericho says they can make a game for multiple PC configurations, but not two Xbox consoles. Cap. What do you say to that?
Well, oftentimes they can't make multiple SKUs for multiple games. I mean, multiple PC configurations. I mean, we've seen this repeatedly with games launching unoptimized and games now require an SSD. Like some of the Ratchet and Clank videos of running the game on a hard drive it looks shocking, But I mean, it's different because PC is just such a huge install base, and also it's just different. It's a different architecture and it's a different market and it's a different environment. You can do direct to consumer. It's a lot different. A lot of a different market, so it's not a fair comparison, but not a completely fair comparison, but I get the point.
Dave Ramos says, how can Series S be holding back gaming if devs are not using all the tools? SFS, is the problem Series S hardware or quality of Microsoft documentation?
I have literally no information about the quality of their documentation or their tools and stuff like that. I'd need to ask some devs for their input on that. It's one thing I've heard, people complain about on Twitter with regards to Xbox, but I haven't seen any really truly substantiated information about whether that's true or not. So I need to do some research on that.
JD Gamer also says Xbox doesn't look at the console as a lone platform. I think to them the console and PC represent one platform because of their day and date releases.
I mean that is how Microsoft use it. Like I was told in LA, I was told that Microsoft is treating the Asus ROG Ally as an Xbox. So like the one of the issues they've got right now is that it's Windows is a pain on that type of device. Tapping around the start menu is horrible. Windows on a 7-inch screen is horrible. Accessing the settings and stuff is horrible. Like some of the stuff you have to do on the Asus ROG to sort of improve the experience. Like there are registry keys you can edit. And it's like, yeah, it's nice that you're able to do this stuff, but it's like, should I have to do this kind of stuff to get the best experience out of it? So one of the things Microsoft's doing right now is prioritizing making Windows better, and that's an Xbox-led effort. One of the things that happened recently at Xbox, I believe last winter, was Microsoft got a new head of hardware. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong here, but in Roanne Sloans, I can't remember her name exactly, but she's very, very cool, and I met her in LA as well, and she is in charge of Xbox hardware, but previously she was in charge of the Windows OEM effort. So it was kind of like her job to liaise between the Windows teams and all those different teams like Dell, Lenovo, Razer, and be like, well, what are the kind of features you want to get out of Windows for your devices and stuff? So I don't think it's any sort of accident that Microsoft's put her in charge of Xbox hardware, because one of the exciting things about the future of Xbox is how much better they're going to be with PC gaming and stuff. But yeah, we'll have to see how it all goes, I guess.
Yeah. Let me see what else we got here. We have let's see. We have Jay Rembert. Rand, thank you for being a voice of reason. Well, thank you for the support, buddy. Crippling Debt says, hit the like button, peeps. Let's get Rand the plaque. Indeed, if you guys are enjoying the show, hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't already.
Do I get half of that plaque?
Do you want half of it?
Yeah, saw it in half.
Okay.
Nah, joking.
Gandara says Larian just making excuses. Captain Logan says, why is this
why would they want to make money? Why would they make?
Yeah, but they wouldn't make any. But my point is, I would say they wouldn't make money on Xbox because if you're releasing against Starfield, game's dead. You're not making any money anyways. It almost benefits them not to launch on Xbox at the same time as PlayStation because it would be buried on Xbox.
So you're saying they're lying?
No, I'm sure the issues they have are the issues they have, but I also because they even talked about how they haven't even announced the version yet. But I also think it's in their best financial interest not to launch the game the day Starfield comes out.
I mean, it is. You're not wrong, but this also isn't the first time this kind of stuff's happened.
Well, maybe. Captain Logan says, why is this an issue for console and not PC?
It is an issue on PC. So that's the answer to that.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, this is why like The Last of Us needed 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and Ratchet and Clank needs an SSD. It is becoming a problem.
It doesn't really need an SSD, but yeah,
it does, man. Have you seen it running on a hard drive? It's
I've seen it running on the Steam Deck.
It doesn't run on Asus ROG Ally.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I mean, the thing was that it cannot run. It can run. It just may not run well, right? But
I think it's easier for games to not run well, or not run on a PC architecture, like, than actually getting it running at all on Series S. I think it's an issue when it comes to certain features like split screen co-op. I don't know.
We have Mohand Mohammed saying, here in Egypt, most people bought the Series S before that. Most people didn't even know Xbox was a thing. And Creed and Eve
I
says,
do hear that a lot from Microsoft as well. That the Series S is a lot of new to Xbox customers, which is, what they want at the end of the day. So,
Creed and Eve says, can we please stop talking about the consoles and talk about Oblivion Remake? Absolutely, because that was what we're going to talk about next. Jez, there's a rumor going around, and this all comes from like Reddit, Game Leaks thing. Former employee of Virtuous Studio basically said, here are the projects they're working on. And that one of the projects is a remake or remaster of Oblivion that should be launching at the end of 2024 or early 2025, which has excited a lot of people. A lot of people are like, absolutely, give me this. Maybe it makes a lot of sense to have Starfield come out this year. And it's like, all right, well, we're not going to have Elder Scrolls 6 ready till 2028, 2029. But you know what? We can do an Oblivion, a game where most people kind of fell in love with Elder. That's where I fell. Well, that was my first Elder Scrolls. But okay, we can do Oblivion. We can kind of release it in 2025, and it's still kind of gets people to something to play in between. Does this make sense to you? Do you trust the rumor? Because the mods did verify this person, so it's not like just a random rumor. Apparently, he's verified by the mods, so I guess they know he did work at Virtuous. So this actually could be true. One, I guess, do you hope the rumor is true? And would you be excited about Oblivion Remake?
I mean, I have no information about this, but Virtuous, what are they also doing?
They do a lot of ports. I think most recently they did the you're gonna hate this, but they did the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition.
Ooh, that's not good news.
They're a hit or miss studio.
Hit or miss.
Yes.
That's not good.
But the rumor is also essentially that this game would be running on both Unreal Engine 5 and Creation Engine or something.
I don't know how that works.
But but that's the rumor, and it's blowing up. So, as a Fallout fan, how do you feel like about not getting a Fallout remake or a Fallout remaster, but it seems like you're going to get an Elder Scrolls one, or at least, if this is true.
What confuses me even more is why isn't it a Morrowind remake?
Because
surely Morrowind's the one you do. No?
Well, I mean, maybe Oblivion holds up more, and maybe Oblivion is the ones that people still remember. Like I said, my first Elder Scrolls was Oblivion, and I think that's probably true for a lot of people. Oblivion is maybe the one that kind of lives in their nostalgic memories, right? Because Skyrim basically has never went away, but Oblivion's still right there. So to me, I think it makes sense if you're going to remake one, it's Oblivion and not Morrowind, personally. Right.
Well, I'm all for it. Like I say, I love Oblivion. It was also my first Creation Engine game. I love Todd. I love everything they touch these days. So I'd probably be down for that. But it just still also does feel odd, I guess, in a way that it isn't a Fallout and that it isn't a Morrowind. I don't know. I feel like those games probably need a remake a little bit more, maybe. But we are getting the Fallout 4 remaster kind of thing soon. So there's that coming. But what confuses me about this a lot is the Unreal Engine creation hybrid. Like,
I don't know. I mean, the guy deleted his post. I don't know, for whatever reasons. Maybe he's getting in trouble. Maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe the rumor's fake. Maybe it's true. I don't know. I just remember seeing something about it was going to run on Unreal or something like that, and I don't know how that would work. We're just taking it at face value for what it is. Obviously, take it with like a grain of salt. The only reason people are giving it any validity is because the mods had vetted the person.
Yeah, I don't trust random Reddit mods to do that either. So like, yeah, they've validated him. So what? That doesn't mean anything. Or I mean, it could have been they could have made a fake ID in Photoshop or something. It doesn't really mean much that a Reddit mod validated it. So you have to remember, Reddit mods are also just volunteers a lot of the time.
No, I'm just saying that's why people are giving it some validity rather than just any rumor.
ignoring it. Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah. I mean, but I'm still skeptical.
Sure,
I'm still
sure.
skeptical until I hear it from a Jeff Grubb or a Tom Henderson. I'm gonna kind of park that one.
Sure, but
Personally.
I think they should do this. I think they should do a Fallout one too. Why not remake Fallout 3? I mean, I know they're doing the Fallout 4 one, so maybe that's sort of... They're like, oh, well, we are doing a next-gen upgrade for Fallout 4, but it seems like the time between Fallout 4 and what is going to be Fallout 5 is vast. I mean, who knows? Obsidian might be doing Fallout New Vegas 2 at some point, but like on the face of it, I think this makes a lot of sense if you were actually going to remake it, because I do think there's going to be a big gap between Starfield and... Like, it only really makes sense if there's a big gap between Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, right? If Elder Scrolls 6 is coming in 2026, there's no reason to do this. You're going to have Starfield this year. 3 years later, you'd have Elder Scrolls. It doesn't make sense to do Oblivion. But if Elder Scrolls is coming later, I mean, even in the court documents or whatever, Phil talked about there's like a franchise that essentially was going to take 10 years to come out, right? I think what the game he's talking about is Elder Scrolls, announced in 2018, maybe launching in 2028, 2029. I think if you have that big of a gap, then I think it totally makes sense to launch an Oblivion remake or what have you somewhere in the middle of those. Yeah. Personally, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, remakes are low-hanging fruit, aren't they? I mean, we've seen Capcom do really well with them. We've seen other companies do really well with them. So it's low-hanging fruit at the end of the day. Capcom has also said they're going to do more remakes, and they also said they're going to release a game that'll sell millions of copies next year. I mean, this is a slight tangent, but what do you think that is? That's Monster Hunter, right?
Oh, it absolutely has to be Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I think it's Monster Hunter World 2. But they're also polling people. What are the Resident Evil games people want made? You know, there's always the Dino Crisis debate. Should they remake it? Should they not bother? Kind of thing. And obviously they're doing Dragon's Dogma 2, so I don't know. Anyway, with regards to that, I'd like to see it. Don't know if it's true. I'm going to choose not to believe it at the moment, but we'll see.
Yeah. I would like for it to be true. I like Oblivion quite a bit. Blind Riot says Jez cost you 6 Patreons, just an FYI. Well, I don't think Jez costs us 6 Patrons. It's the beginning. It's about to be the beginning of a new month, and they charge, and people always unsubscribe at the beginning, so we always lose. Plus, I know some people just signed up to see Jess suffer, eating the chip, and they weren't going to subscribe any longer. It's whatever. You don't have to subscribe to the Patreon. We would like you to, for sure, but it's not like a requirement. So, you know. And if anybody unsubs because like of Jez's opinion about the Series S, which is just an opinion, and we've seen how Jez can be right, but then also we can see how Jez has been wrong before.
When?
Yeah. Indiana Jones being multi-platform, Square Enix relationship not being fixed. I mean, you've been right a bit. You've been wrong a bit. I mean, it's humans. I'm right. I'm wrong. You know, everybody's right. Everybody's wrong at some point. You know, it's fine. You know, it is what it is. You know what I mean? I don't know why people get upset about other people's opinions about stuff, but that's the internet for you, right, Jez?
Yep, indeed you do.
So, yeah, no, we just we try to give Patreons the value, and if, they want to unsubscribe, that's perfectly fine, right? Anyways, so I hope the Oblivion thing is real, because especially if the time between Starfield and the next game is as long as I think it's going to be, I think it makes a lot of sense. But they better get the most out of Virtuous, because you cannot launch that game in the state that Outer Worlds was launched in. So it needs to be horrible. It needs to be kind of needs to be really good. So
and if I'm right, that game was also Unreal Engine, correct?
Morrowind?
No, Outer Scrolls. Outer Worlds.
No, I don't think so.
It is. It's Unreal. I'm pretty sure it is.
I thought Elder Scrolls.
Not Elder Scrolls. Outer Worlds.
Oh, I don't know what engine Outer Worlds is.
I'm pretty sure it's Unreal Engine. So if that's what they do with Unreal Engine, I'm kind of nervous.
Man. Idle Sloth did just tag us in something. Apparently, Xbox has launched a replacement components on the Xbox Store. Now you can fix your stick drift, bumpers, peeling grips, and more on an out-of-warranty Xbox Elite Series 2 and Series X and S controllers yourself with genuine parts as part of
That's
like
really
right to
interesting.
repair. Yeah, so you can
Microsoft has been pushing this quite a lot with
so you can buy the shells, you can buy all the replacements, and then you can fix it yourself for less than a cost for you to actually buy a new controller. Very interesting. This
pretty cool, right?
this was like 30 minutes ago. Did you guys have an article up about this on Windows Central yet?
Nope, but hopefully someone's caught it and will.
Yeah, they even have like
for 'em.
guides on how to actually repair them and stuff. So
That's
guides
pretty
on
cool.
replacement components. That's pretty cool. You know, because stick
cool.
drift is a thing. Elite series, controllers breaking is definitely a thing. So
Yes.
being able to fix it yourself by buying still it sucks that they break in the first place, right?
Yes, it does. It does.
But if you could essentially get the components you need to fix it yourself for cheaper than it would be to buy a new controller, that's all cool.
Ideal.
So yeah, there's that. There's a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle controllers, pizza scented, kind of a promo
Pizza
that's going on.
Is that Australian team again?
I don't know. Well, I don't know what region is doing it, but you went off the deep end on this one. Now it's like I don't know why anybody would want pizza scented controllers.
I like the idea of that.
Yeah, we also have Hasbro. This is interesting. Hasbro wants Transformers games on Game Pass. And the reason they're not there is because Activision lost the source code, Jez?
Yeah, so this was an interview at a Transformers convention, I believe, and Hasbro did an interview with a blog about Transformers. They actually emailed me, and they're eager for us to talk about the Game Pass stuff. And Hasbro basically said, yeah, we would love to re-release those and stuff like that, but we believe that the source code was lost, which is, less than ideal, should we say. If you want to re-release a game, oftentimes you probably need the source code in order to do that. So unfortunately, they're kind of hoping that Microsoft will be able to recover that source code or something once they
How'd they lose the
acquire
damn
them.
source code? I don't understand. There's this
It
famous
happens all
one
the
that
time.
that Square lost one of the source codes for Final Fantasy. I think it was 8 or something.
Dude, it happens all the time. I think didn't they lose a source code from Metal Gear Solid as well?
I don't know.
And that, like,
It does
the
happen. It does
subsequent-
happen quite a bit, but you have to wonder how the hell does this happen? Now we had talked before about, hey, what games do you bring back from the Activision thing,
Yeah.
right? And we always were like, well, the Transformers one's probably not license issues, right? But at least
Yeah.
according to this thing, they're like, we want the games back on Game Pass. So it makes it wonder, like, is there a licensing problem? Are they just saying that so like Microsoft finds the games and then comes to the table with them to license out or hash things out or something? I don't know. What do you think? Is it more than just we want these games out there, find them? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much of like a business where because clearly those games got delisted for a reason because the license is expired, right?
Yes.
So that would imply that for them to be put back up for sale, you would need to renegotiate for the license again. So I wonder if one of those things where they're like, yes. Everybody's loving ABK. They're gonna get these games, and maybe Hasbro's thinking they got some dollar signs in their eyes where they're like, oh, well, yeah, of course we would want these on Game Pass as long as Microsoft cuts us a check, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know.
It all depends on there's like loads of factors it depends on. It depends on actually having the source code. Depends on if it is licensing issues, right? And they don't have the source code, they can't remove the licensed music, they can't remove the license whatever it is that's caused licensing issues. They need the source code in order to do that. And that's why like a lot of these games that the source code does end up getting lost, a lot of them come back as a result of them literally just using ROMs. Like I think Metal Gear Solid 1 on good old, I think it was Metal Gear Solid 1. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there's like a bunch of games that have been re-released or licensed and stuff like that. And when they've come back, they've been like the ROM version that they've downloaded from some website that some third party had set up and installed, and then they've basically jacked the ROM and been like, well, it's our content, so yeah, we'll use it or whatever. But we just have to wait and see. I mean, it depends if Microsoft can find the code, if the code even still exists anywhere to be found. It's complicated, but if there is anyone who would be able to do this, it's probably Microsoft, because they're into that stuff. They're into game preservation, and that's those Activision Transformers games were like really good.
Yeah, they were quite good. I would like to see them come back. Yeah, so I mean, it's always weird to me when I hear like, oh, they lost the source code of the game. I'm like, excuse me? Like, you think you would take better care of that. Something else that happened recently, Jez, was Hideo Kojima took a picture with Microsoft marketing. They're out there visiting Mr. Kojima. We know that he's making a game exclusive for Xbox.
Yes,
do you think we see it this year? I know. Last time he took a picture with Greenberg,
TGS.
they were all out there. Now they're all out there again. What's going on? Do you think?
I mean, there is TGS coming up, and we were talking a bit about that.
There's Game Awards coming at the end of the year as well. We know there's even One Night Live with Jeff Keighley, Gamescom, right? I mean, so there's things happening. Do we think we are going to see Kojima's game this year?
We could do.
I would like to see it.
And there's plenty of events where it's coming up. I think Kojima's probably a good one for TGS. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm playing both sides because he got a game with PlayStation and a game with Xbox. He's like, I'm playing both sides and I'm coming out on top. It's Kojima, like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's like interesting that the Xbox marketing guys are there. And well, to be fair, I honestly don't know like how early on marketing starts for stuff like this. So I see this, and my first thought's like, are they coming up with a marketing strategy, a marketing plan? Are they talking about how they want the game to be shown, to be marketed? How would all that stuff work? And it's like, well, if they're talking about it now because they have plans that maybe they want to show it off this year, where would be the best venue to show it off? When like those sort of things. It'd be interesting to see those discussions because and it goes back to the whole Japanese support. They, almost like not this whole podcast, but a lot of this podcast is about, right? The Sega tease, even though it's not really a tease, but we both feel that Sega's still on the menu and how they really showed up support there, and Square Enix with Phil repairing that relationship, future Square Enix games coming to Xbox, right? So, then you got Kojima. So it really shows you the lengths at which they are trying to really get Japanese support and make it last, and how important it is to them, right? So just another example of that. And we also have, people always wondered, Jez, how many people were subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate versus just subscribed to regular Game Pass. And apparently, according to some European Commission documents, at least in 2021, the total number of users on Game Pass, 70 to 80% are signed up for Game Pass Ultimate. So the vast majority of people who are on Game Pass are paying for the highest tier, which, to be fair, I've always thought that. Because I sort of feel like if you're on console, you're on Ultimate. Right? Because there are games in Game Pass that you need Ultimate for because you need the multiplayer. So I'm not really surprised that it's as high as it is. That makes a lot of sense to me. What do you think?
Sorry, I was a bit distracted then.
You're always distracted about stuff.
Yeah, I was making sure someone posted that thing you were talking about. But what were you saying? Say it again.
About Xbox Game Pass Ultimate having 70 to 80%.
Oh yeah, that news. Yeah, I remember seeing that. So I didn't think it'd be that high, but it's not unexpected. I think one of the things we talked about when they were bringing Xbox Game Pass Core was the future play has to be to get rid of probably Xbox Game Pass for console, and probably like just move people to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate eventually, and that Game Pass Core is the cheap version, and that really they want everyone on Ultimate at the end of the day. Do you agree with me on that? Do you think that's on point?
I mean, of course they want everybody on Game Pass Ultimate because it's the one that costs the most.
But do you think they'll force people across, like by raise the price of Game Pass console, and then, I mean, you could poll the chat too, ask people what tier of Game Pass are on if they're on any.
Okay.
You know, I'd be interested to know how many people are on Game Pass console and not interested in Ultimate, because for a little bit extra, it feels like you get a lot more, and then Game Pass for console feels like this kind of silly tier, which doesn't make a lot of sense now. I don't know.
All right, I am. Let me just keep on talking because I need to type this stuff out.
Because Game Pass for console, it doesn't give you Xbox Live Gold for multiplayer, right? Which is obviously not ideal because you want to play online. So if you do want to play online, what you have to do is you have to get Game Pass. You have to get Game Pass Core on top of it, which then works out as slightly more expensive annually. I think it's like $5 more expensive annually than just buying Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which then also gives you a bunch of extra stuff. So for me, I don't know. It kind of feels like they would rather just move people across because there's no point. There's literally no point in subscribing to Xbox Live Gold and Xbox Game Pass console simultaneously. There's no point whatsoever. So they have to want people to move across, I would have imagined.
Hold on, I'm almost done. I screwed up the poll the first time.
Okay. Well,
Game Pass, PC, and then I'll just add no.
Yeah. I got an email today about Game Pass Core and, the final Games with Gold game coming out and stuff like that, and, moving people across to Game Pass Core. I got the customer email about that today. And they also announced that the Game Pass, the console companion app's going away. So like the only
which
Xbox
I'm not surprised.
Windows...
They haven't supported it in a long time.
Well, they actually announced in 2019 they were going to get rid of that. And like if you open the console companion, it actually gives you a message: we're getting rid of this app. So it's not like nobody knew about it. But the expectation was that the functionality from that app would come across, but it hasn't. So like now we're not going to have any way to access cloud game DVR clips without going through a third-party website like GameDVR.com, which isn't a huge problem, but it also just feels weird that they haven't brought the functionality across. I don't know.
I mean, I just put my game clips on my USB drive that I have plugged into my Xbox, or if I don't, then I just download them onto my phone.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd just be easier. Like, if you are someone who uses those clips.
Yeah, of course.
It'd be easier if you could just grab them from the app or even trim them from the app, Like, why is that functionality on iOS and Android, but you're telling me that functionality isn't going to be available on their own operating system? It just feels a bit weird, I guess. Yeah. Especially because they have an Xbox app now that could do that stuff. And the Xbox app does have a community sharing feature that shows you clips from console, but you can't share from it. I don't know. It's just weird to me.
Yeah. But, I mean, Game Pass, I'm not surprised it's that as high as it is. And also, I think if it's coming from 2021, that number, I guess it can vary because they announced 18 million when they acquired Bethesda in September of 2020, but then 25 million when they acquired Activision in January of 2022. I'm pretty sure these numbers, when I was reading it, are from 2021. Could be wrong. So that would be it would put those numbers anywhere between 18 to 25 million. So I'm not surprised at 70-80% because I feel like if you're on console, you absolutely, and you're subscribed to Game Pass, you also probably also need multiplayer. But I would imagine, because then I guess the question is how many people are actually subscribed to Xbox Gold, right? Which means if you're subscribed to Gold, you're probably not on Game Pass. Because if you were, you just would be Ultimate. So, I mean, how many users are actually there on Gold? And then how many, all of a sudden on September 15th, how many Xbox Core users will there be where they can be like, oh, we have 50 million Xbox Game Pass subs, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not too shocked to see that number. But
It could be transformative. You know, it could be a really big deal. I'd be interested to know what their internal projections are about that.
yeah.
Maybe I can find out at Gamescom.
Yeah, maybe. I think
the changeover will happen just after Gamescom, right?
Yeah, September 15th. They still have to announce 6 games coming to Game Pass Core. You had a conspiracy theory that 6 of those games might be Activision Blizzard related, like maybe here's Spyro, or here's Crash, or here's Prototype
Crash,
or something.
That Crash Rumble game probably will
Maybe not even just Crash, but there's also like Crash 4, there's Crash Trilogy,
Tony Hawk's.
They could. There's a lot they could do.
Definitely.
And I do think when the acquisition completes, well, now I'm at 2 different minds here. I thought before when the Activision ABK deal closes, that Microsoft would be like, we have X amount of users.
Hmm.
But now with Game Pass Core happening so soon, I don't think we'll actually get those numbers. I think they will wait for everybody to be transferred to Game Pass Core so they can even give a bigger number.
Interesting.
But I do think we'll get a number at some point. Because they're going to want to brag about the ABK thing, and maybe they'll talk about the numbers and then the Game Pass Core stuff. So maybe we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that. Let's see what else we got here. We have Ubisoft canceling Immortals Phoenix Rising sequel, which a lot of people were pissed about. And the game was fun. I think I saw something on Insider Gaming where maybe it wasn't Insider Gaming, it was somewhere else where it was like essentially they canceled it in favor of like one of the new Assassin's Creeds or something. Along those lines. But yeah, I mean the name was always bad, Immortals Phoenix Rising. But I thought the game was fun, and it's kind of disappointing to see that they're not going to continue with the franchise. Yeah. So, damn you, Ubisoft.
I guess you know, I'm part of the problem here because I didn't buy the game or play it, even though I was kind of like tweeting about it and saying, "Oh, it's cool that Ubisoft did this," but I never actually played the game. And I guess that kind of happened for a lot of people. Like they're also talking a lot about AC Mirage, saying it's going to be a shorter, more tight experience than Valhalla, for example. I think they said it's dozens of hours shorter. You know, it's really funny because people are like heralding that as a good thing, and it's like back in the day, people would have been like, "Oh man, why aren't games longer?" But now everyone's like, "Oh man, I wish games were shorter." It's just interesting, I guess.
Except for yeah, I saw some people were upset about Windows Central article about Star Wars. I'm looking more forward to Star Wars than Starfield.
Yeah, I mean that's her opinion.
I mean, hey, that was a total SEO play, and hats off to you.
No, it really wasn't because we don't do that. That was her opinion.
Yeah,
and it wasn't an SEO play because it never hit Google. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, also true because who's searching for Star Wars Outlaws at this point, right? Nobody.
Well, yeah. So yeah, it wasn't an SEO play. So
some people will say it is. I did see some people say it was an SEO clickbait play.
Well, those people are idiots. So.
Yeah, people don't like it when you give your opinions about stuff. Apparently, you know.
No, apparently not.
Crobo says easy to find source code Control F Transformers. True. Maybe they just forgot that. Zatanna says if Xbox buys Hasbro, would they own a monopoly? I don't know.
Hasbro. I don't think so. No. I don't really know that much about what Hasbro owns, to be quite honest.
Neither do I.
I need to look into it, I guess.
Neither do I.
It's an interesting question, though.
9Live wants to know how many Game Pass users do we think Microsoft has now or is targeting? I think they have around 30 million.
Yeah, I was thinking 30 million as soon as I read that.
I mean, I think Jimbo even sort of leaked it and said 29 at one point, or PlayStation did. It's around 30 million. I don't think Xbox is where they want to be with that number. But then again, hey, you need content for Game Pass, and Xbox's first party content. It's kind of, they haven't released anything really big since Halo in 2021, so can't really grow your sub stuff without your own games, and they didn't have any. So hopefully Starfield on. Well, then Redfall was a disaster, so that didn't help. So yeah, we'll have to see how that improves. But yeah, you know what? Oh, the new Xbox dashboard is also finally available to everybody. I feel like I've had this thing forever.
Actually, not. It's actually still only
It,
available to a subset of users.
then why'd they put out a tweet saying that it was available to everybody soon? Just because they wanted to let everybody know that it was coming soon?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they walked it back, like some of the developers, and they were like, "Oh, actually, it's coming soon to a subset of users." So it is coming, but it's still they're still testing some stuff on it. I think they're really concerned. A lot of the things that motivates Microsoft right now is how it impacts engagement with the Game Pass layer on the dashboard. So they're probably doing a lot of A/B testing about figuring out if it's going to negatively impact their bottom line, which is fair enough, I guess. I think that's where a lot of that comes from. Could be wrong, but yeah, I like the new dashboard. I don't know how you feel about it. Do you feel anything different about it?
I mean, I don't know. It's the same thing it's always been. It's sort of even worse, actually. Yeah, sure, the tiles are smaller, so you can see more of the real estate, but they essentially you could put your stuff with custom pins and groups.
Yeah.
But Microsoft made sure that if you actually do that, you see like a row of what they want you to see first before you can get to that.
Yeah.
At least through the guide. I mean, I know at least on the dashboard you can go to it quicker on the guide. It certainly seems like that was a decision that came from up above where they wanted more discoverability. So yeah, visually it looks nicer because the tiles aren't as big, but as someone who's a power user for Xbox and knows everything that's happening, I don't need to, like, if I scroll to my pins, I don't need to be shown the newest release games in Game Pass or here's the free-to-play games. I don't need to see that. You know what I mean? I'm never going to click on that. I know where to find Game Pass. I know what's in Game Pass. I know all that stuff. But it feels like that's like something they needed to do. Because a lot of the feedback was like, remove this, and they didn't. But they did at least listen to the feedback of, hey, we want to see more of our background, so they shrunk the tiles. But yeah, whatever. Yeah. I mean, we talk. I mean, so we've had this dashboard for forever. Whatever. It's whatever. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. So we're gonna head over, and we're gonna do some Patreon questions, right, Jez?
Patreon questions. Yeah,
the lovely, lovely people over at Patreon. You can sign up, patreon.com/XB2, where apparently Jez lost 6 subscribers today for his dooming and glooming, I guess.
Not according to what I'm seeing.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, it's people subscribe, people unsubscribe. It's fine. I'm totally fine with it. And we are going to get to these questions from our wonderful people. And we have 22 of them. So let's get to them. If you guys are enjoying the show, hit the like button, please, and subscribe if you're new. We have first one from Achievement. Do you think one of the reasons Xbox developed FPS Boost was to gain performance benefits aside from developer involvement due to parity clause? PlayStation forces on third parties. Well, the FPS Boost is on older stuff. So I don't really think there's any parity clauses remaining on older games like that. I think it was Xbox flexing their back compat program, really, where it's like, hey, we got this cool back compat stuff that PlayStation's not doing, and we can do these things that actually improves these older games, whether it's adding HDR or adding FPS boost or the Hochi method where they would bring it up to 4K. I think it was their developers touting how important back compat was and how it was a defining feature of the Xbox platform versus PlayStation, really, about like, hey, this is why you should play here because you get these sort of benefits. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the rhetoric around the consoles when they launched sort of hasn't panned out. A lot of the commentary about ray tracing this, ray tracing that, hasn't been super impressive, I guess. And then you've got Xbox is supposedly more powerful than PlayStation, and a lot of the times PlayStation games show up better, and that's because it's been developed natively for PlayStation and then ported across. And then the tools aren't being used properly, assumedly. and some of that other kind of stuff. So, and this is part of the reason why I wrote the article that upset everyone, and it's sort of like if Xbox Series X had a bigger footprint, and I feel like Cloud and Xbox Series S to some degree has come at the expense of the Xbox Series X. I don't think some of these problems would be so prevalent, and I guess they're not as really prevalent as we make them out to be as hardcore gamers. Like most people just play their games, they don't really care about some of this stuff. But there are some really annoying issues with the Series S, for example. Like some games just don't run that well on it. Like Remnant 2 having issues on the Series S and launch, and then they need to be upgraded and fixed and repaired, and Microsoft has to get involved. I just wish Microsoft would get involved earlier in the cycle of these games launching, because I do think like it's a good strategy, and it's a good thing to have accessibility for people on lower incomes and students and kids, maybe kids who don't care about having a 4K gaming device or whatever. But I don't think Microsoft's been doing a particularly great job of making sure the experience on the Series S is as good as it could be. And I think they need to be a bit more proactive with it. So that's basically my take on that, really. Maybe I didn't explain it very well.
No, that's fine. And our poll, Jez, are you subbed to Xbox Game Pass? 81% say, yes, I am on Ultimate.
Well, there you go.
4% say, yes, I'm on Game Pass Console. 4% say, yes, I'm on Game Pass PC. And 11% say, I'm not subbed to Game Pass. So, I mean, like I said, most people are going to be on Game Pass Ultimate because it offers everything you need, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving back on to Patreon, we have Mythic Marty. Hey, Rand and Jez, looking to the next generation, could you see Microsoft going for a handheld, lower-end machine that can plug into a TV and a high-end Series X-like SKU? It seems like the current 2 SKU approach rules out a third handheld-level device, so perhaps the best time would be next-gen. I still think an Xbox OS-powered handheld is a better proposition for devs and consumers than a handheld device running full Windows. Smaller OS overhead taking up less system resources. Interested to hear what you and xCloud gamer Jez thinks. So essentially,
well, I completely agree. The ideal scenario is something that's about the Xbox Series S level, that is handheld, right? Now, I was told by a high-up engineer at Microsoft during discussions at an event that it wasn't possible with the Series S right now because of thermals at the end of the day. But AMD have been working pretty damn hard to bring down the voltage the wattage rather, of some of their their chips. They announced the Phoenix range of Ryzen processors in January, and those run at 15 watts or whatever. And a lot of these processors, like when they're running Windows games, they run them like oftentimes better than what the Series S would do, So, but how does that translate to? You can't exactly translate the Xbox operating system directly to the Windows operating system. But is there something custom that AMD and Microsoft could do to sort of get their Xbox Series S running on that kind of device someday? I think most probably yes, I would imagine at some point, because the work on that kind of stuff seems to be ramping up. And as demand for these kind of devices grows, it sort of increasingly sort of becomes a no-brainer, I think. People just want to take their games wherever they want to go now. And Microsoft even says that themselves in their mission when they talk about cloud and they talk about cross-play and PC and, cross-progression and stuff. I was talking to Microsoft. I was talking to someone from Microsoft today about how I wish Remnant 2 was cross-progression because I want to play my Xbox save on my Asus ROG Ally and stuff. And that's really that's probably the end game, what Microsoft's thinking about when it comes to some of these experiences. But I don't know. Right now, Cloud's pissing me off right now because there are huge queues for xCloud. which I've never really seen before. Earlier today, and this was not a peak time. This was about maybe 2 p.m. And I guess it is the school. It is school vacation, so maybe there's a lot of people. Maybe there's more people on XCloud than usual for Fortnite right now. But I've never seen I've never seen it have so many queues. Like it took me about maybe 6 or 7 minutes to launch a game, and it was like, you're in a queue right now. Bear with us, kind of thing. I've never seen that before on XCloud, except at Christmas. But I don't know. So native's just better, really. Frankly,
I mean, the idea of like, if you have a really high-end Series X next gen, right? And that's what he's talking about. He basically says, hey, can you see them doing like 2 console SKU, but one be a high-end Series X SKU and then the other one being like a handheld device? The disparity between those two would be ridiculous, right?
It would be, but one would be handheld.
Right, but I'm still saying, like, Xbox would have what they have now, where if you want to release a game on Xbox, you got to release it on the Series X and Series S. And we had that whole discussion earlier about Larian. And now you're going to go to next gen and have this really powerful Series X 2, whatever it would be, right? And then you would have a handheld docked, is what he's talking about. And the disparity between those two would be greater than the disparity between the current Series X and S. And you're still being like, you need to, like, you don't see that being a problem?
Well, I think they could solve that by making the other SKU a PC at the end of the day. Make it Windows with a special shell. But I do think that's a good play, personally. I don't see that as a problem. Because it isn't a problem for the Switch. And
yeah, but the Switch doesn't have a super high-end SKU alongside it, though.
Yeah, but you gotta imagine, like, there'd probably be a lot of demand for a really high-quality handheld Xbox that can run classic games, like all the 360 backwards compatible games, all the classic Call of Duty games. You market it with classic Call of Duty, which will, presumably run really well on those systems. Presumably those are games are going to come to Nintendo Switch as well. But I don't know. I really do think they can't just take this movement to PC games line down. I don't know. Handheld gaming, sorry. They can't take that line down. But
I mean, yeah, okay. We'll have to see. I maybe it's just my own pessimism for like handheld gaming. I just don't care. Whereas like, to me
it's
that
great, man.
To me,
I'm
that
using my eyes so much.
I'll say this, and maybe
More
this is
than
the
cloud.
maybe this is the
Way
wrong
more
thing
than
to
cloud.
say, right? Is I feel like if they did that, they are just intentionally copying Nintendo, just like they copied Nintendo with Kinect, and just like PlayStation copied it with the Move, where it was like they saw something that was successful, and they copied it. And I understand this business is all about copying others, copying things that are successful, right? So, and I would look as like Microsoft looking at like, Switch is super successful, and they're not powerful at all. Maybe we can do a handheld, and maybe it would be successful for us on that level. But then you also would need a regular console that's also powerful to compete with the PlayStation 6, and you'd be trying to do both things at once, and would you be doing both things as good as you could? Because they're both different.
They're actually doing that right now with PC. They're not doing particularly great in that space. They're doing cloud.
Well, I mean,
again,
they said they're about to make more money than they ever have on PC. I mean, Phil said that during the showcase afterwards in those interviews.
Yeah, I mean, comparatively well, but I just mean that they can't compete with Steam.
Nobody can compete with
Steam. They're coming at it from a different direction, I guess. But I think like maybe the play there is you make a PC Gamepass handheld, don't call it an Xbox or something, and maybe that's your play. But then again, even then, it's like Microsoft would probably be thinking like, well, this could be a way to improve our Windows OEM income, because Windows OEM was down a lot last quarter, and that they probably see these handheld gaming PCs as a way of bringing that up a bit. It's an exciting new category. They're relatively, for what they do, they could potentially be relatively cheap. Thousands and thousands of games that would even run on like some of the lower end processors and stuff. They don't all have to be Asus ROG Ally, Z1 Extreme, whatever it's called. They could be like cheaper, less powerful devices that run classic games and stuff. I think there's a huge opportunity there. And maybe Microsoft would just let them take that aspect of it. The OEMs, I mean, like Razer, Lenovo. Like I leaked a new Lenovo gaming handheld today. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
So Lenovo's getting in on it, and Dell have already talked about getting in on it as well with the Alienware UFO, they're calling it. Speaking of UFOs, Rand.
Yeah.
Did you see?
I saw. Of course, who didn't see?
So, Rand, do you think the truth is out there? Do you think aliens are among us?
I mean, I do believe aliens exist in the universe. I mean, how could they not? Statistically, it would bend to them actually being real, just because of how many planets there are and how many galaxies and stuff, right? Yes. The question has always been, have they been here? Have they visited Earth in our lifetime, essentially? And hey, they're admitting under oath that they have UFOs, they got alien bodies. Granted, the Pentagon denied all that stuff.
Biotics.
So,
No, biologics.
Biologics. I mean, what else could that even mean?
I don't know. What does biologic even mean? I wasn't even sure if it was a word when I first heard it. But the guy, I think it's really funny that he said all this under oath.
They should be leaning into this for Starfield marketing right now.
Yeah, they should be.
They should be 100%. They should be leaning into this.
Yeah, they should.
I don't know. I mean, sure, I would like to believe. Maybe I don't know, like that they visited and stuff. Whatever.
Whatever.
This is a government conspiracy. People have said for a while the government has all this stuff, and it's like, I'd like to see them. I like to see the UFOs and the aliens. It's just like to think, all right, about how like long space travel is in between galaxies, and how long they would have to travel to get here to then be here during the time that I'm alive.
Quite far.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, but we'll see. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out one day. I mean, we have someone testifying under oath, so maybe the government.
Which I think is really funny, because surely if he's testifying under oath and he's found out to be lying to promote a book or something, isn't that
it's perjury?
Prison worthy offense? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's interesting that he said that at least.
Yeah, we got Silas saying, "Greetings, Matt and Jerry. With the success of Super Nintendo World, Microsoft has decided to partner up with Universal Studios and open up a theme land based on an Xbox IP. What IP would you guys pick, and what type of ride would be the main attraction of the land? Feel free to add a themed restaurant too." I like this. I like this one because
you go first.
Well, I like it, but it's very. So if Xbox, what?
Go over it again.
So, with the success of Super Nintendo World, Microsoft has decided to partner up with Universal Studios and open a themed land based on an Xbox IP. What IP would you guys pick, and what type of ride would be the main attraction of the land?
Well, for me, it's pretty easy, which is why I wanted you to go.
Oh, well, you give yours then. Gears of War, Lancers.
No. Well, if this is post ABK, the answer's already there. There's a map in Overwatch called. Yeah. Well, there's a map in Overwatch called Blizzard World.
Okay.
Which is all of Blizzard's games in a theme park setting. It's kind of a no-brainer. So you've got like a World of Warcraft ride, you've got StarCraft stuff, all that kind of different franchises there. Because in the Overwatch world, Blizzard is a game dev in the Overwatch world, I guess. Very confusing, but yes, that makes a lot of sense for me. Blizzard world. Because what other IPs have they got that really have that kind of cachet right now?
I mean, Halo would be interesting, like a ring world, right?
No one would turn up.
Oh, shut up! Nobody would turn up. I'm just saying, like, imagine a portion of the ring right there. because I'm trying to think like Gears related. What would you do? Nobody cares about Gears anymore. So you just have to, like I was thinking.
It's funny when you argue about Gears and Halo, and it's like nobody cares about either franchise anymore.
My mind even went to like Viva Pinata, like walking around like a petting zoo type of thing,
That'd be
because
cool.
like Halo, you could have Halo, you could have the ring, you could do like one of those the Warthog escapes as like the ride, as like the ring's falling apart or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you could do any single game. It'd have to be like an Xbox world where it's just like loads of different Xbox IP, Gears, Halo, Sea of Thieves. You could do like a Pirates of the Caribbean kind of ride with Sea of Thieves and all that kind of stuff. There's probably a lot they could do there. It's interesting. But I think we're a long way away from Microsoft having the IP power to do something like that. You could have like a Fallout world. That'd be sick. But yeah.
Yeah, Sarah11 Kevin says, instead of making a pro console, do you think Xbox should create an Xbox branded PC? I would be more drawn to that as an existing console users to get into the PC market. Maybe provide more value to Game Pass Ultimate as well.
I've often thought about this, and I think Microsoft's kind of like they're in a weird place with making their own PC hardware because they always have to make it overpriced. Because they don't want to undercut their partners. They don't want to undercut Alienware, Razer, Dell, Lenovo, Asus. They don't want to undercut any of them, which is why Surface devices are always really overpriced. They're always really, really overpriced, and they're overpriced on purpose as to not undercut their partners and stuff. And I feel like Xbox branded PC hardware would be the same way. It'd have to be overpriced as to not piss off all of those PC manufacturers. So I think probably the answer is no. I don't think they should or even could do it with their current business model. But Steve Ballmer was trying to move Microsoft to a world where they make their own hardware like Apple and that don't need to rely on OEMs as much. But I don't think that's the road they want to go down these days. The PC market's a bit depressed right now because there's a big surplus after COVID. But that's sort of starting to ease out now, and I think it'll go back to normal by next year, I think they said. But yeah, I'd love to see it personally. I think they should at least do maybe like Xbox branded components. Maybe they could do like an Xbox branded AMD graphics card or an Xbox branded case or something. But I think like doing a full blown like all in one or something where it's just every part of it's an Xbox component. I think that's probably a stretch, but who knows, man? Who knows what could happen in the next few years?
Am I wrong, or did Steam try to do this as well? Steam branded PCs or something, or Valve branded PCs?
Yeah, they had
Steam machines or something.
Yeah, the Steam machine stuff. They had their own. They had the whole Steam OS thing, which is what the Steam Deck runs. But back then, there wasn't many games that supported it very well. The tools weren't there. I'm not even sure if Proton existed. Maybe it did. But now they've got like the Proton layer, which emulates Windows PC games on Linux really, really well. So they could probably do another crack at Steam OS, Steam machines, and they'd probably do pretty well. I mean, they've got like loads of games verified for Deck, which is their platform for They're building a Linux gaming ecosystem there. The only issue with Linux is as soon as you step out of the Steam OS, it's a horrible mess that makes me want to cry. So for all Windows' shortcomings, at least it's not Linux, or Mac for that matter.
Yeah. I don't think they do PC branded Xboxes personally.
No, I don't think so either. But I do often wonder, like, what's the future of Xbox hardware? Is it PC? Is Xbox's future PC? What they're gonna do in not next gen, but the gen after that? What's that gonna look like? What's the market gonna look like?
Well, yeah, you're talking about like 2035. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm talking in like a decade. Yeah, I mean or more than a decade, like 15 years. What's that gonna look like? I mean, Disney.
What is Xbox 2 gonna look like?
Yeah, exactly. Are we still gonna be here? Am I gonna still be live? Who knows? Tune in to find out. But one of the things that Disney announced this week was that they're completely halting DVD and Blu-ray sales in Australia, which is a glimpse at what's going to happen in America and Britain and the rest of the world in the years to come.
Well, it's all. I mean, you can see Sony starting to get, because I mean, the rumor is that the PS5 Slim is going to have a detachable disc drive.
Yeah,
and
I totally believe it.
I think Xbox will eventually release a discless Series X, whether it's a mid-gen upgrade or whether it's just a refresh. Bring costs down. They'll probably get rid of the disc drive. And
You're
next gen,
save like $10 off of that.
I think next gen both will offer like a detachable disc drive. Because it's like,
same.
What's the point? Like, physical media is. I know that's going to piss people off, at least a certain segment, but I mean, people have spoken. They don't care about physical media. So, yeah. We have Billy Ball saying, Jez, did you remember to put the Netty roll in the freezer for the one chip challenge?
The what?
The Netty roll.
What is that?
I don't know. That's what he says. The Netty roll. Did you remember to put the Netty roll in the freezer for the one chip challenge?
I did not. I'm not sure what that is.
Yes.
Maybe you sent me a message about that, and I don't know, but I forgot. I mean, King David told me to get lemon juice.
Yeah, lemon.
But I
stuff,
didn't do that either. Yeah, I didn't do that either.
DPink94. Hey guys, we will soon be a month out from release of my most anticipated game of the year, Starfield. Given its size, when do you think we'll start seeing more information about the game, like previews, review embargoes, etc.? You would think Bethesda would want to give the press and influence enough time with the game. True. The question is, when's the game going to be finished? Can't give it to people unless it's finished. They haven't announced that it's gold yet, but then again, Arcane did announce Redfall went gold. So when will we find out about embargo? Well, you probably find out about embargo whenever the reviewers get the game, because the embargo will be with the review copy, and then it might leak out about when the embargo is. Previews? Don't know. I don't know if anybody's been flown out to play the game. If they have, maybe you would have previews early August. Maybe they're just going to give the game... I don't know. Jez, as somebody who might review Starfield, how much time do you think you would need for that game? A minimum 2 weeks? Hopefully like 3 weeks?
3 weeks would be the best.
How would you feel if it came out that it was like they're giving... Because apparently... Baldur's Gate 3 comes out on Thursday and nobody has review codes yet.
Yeah, so Baldur's Gate's weird and different, I guess, because the thing with Baldur's Gate is it's been out in early access for a million years.
True.
So you can experience a lot of it already. So it's a bit of a different scenario, I guess, to some degree.
Still, but they're saying that's got, 90-hour game or something?
Yeah, it's...
Are reviewers really going to cram in essentially a couple days to get a review up?
Yeah, I know we're not.
I'm just saying, like...
There's no way we're getting a review of that up in the short term.
I mean, I don't know. To me, it's like, I guess... Redfall, I knew something was wrong. Number one, I knew something was wrong with Redfall the minute they were like, 60 FPS isn't going to be at launch. I was like... Immediately, my radar was like, something's wrong with the game. And clearly there was. But then, like, nobody got a review code until, like, 3 or 4 days before. And I was like, that is a problem. Because if that happens... then they don't really have any faith in the game. They're trying to minimize how many reviews are out there for the game launch. So, you're looking at the timetable for next month. The game releases Friday, September 1st for early access. You would imagine reviews are that week. You would imagine if they feel strongly about this game, and like if the game reviewed well, that could really spur people to get it. So you'd imagine the reviews would have to be that week, like the 30th, maybe the 29th. If they gave the game to people this week, maybe you could have it the week before, like the 25th, on that Friday. But it really depends. Like, if you start hearing people don't have Starfield by, like, the week of the 21st, I'd get a little cautious. Or, it seems like if it's not in reviewers' hands by at least, like, the 18th, which is 2 weeks before, that's cutting it a little close for a game like that. Preferably, people would have it in hand by the 11th, which would give them 3 weeks until essentially the early access, right?
Yeah.
So not this week, but next week. But yeah, we'll find out soon enough.
Yes.
CJ says, question for Rand. I recently completed Jedi Survivor, and for me, I found the game less enjoyable than the first. particularly the completion process. The story I did enjoy, but overall I think the game tried to do too much and didn't live up to the Fallen Order standard. How did you feel about it? Did you prefer Jedi Survivor over Fallen Order? P.S. Good luck, Jez. I hope your ass can cash that check. Well, yeah. Apparently it's doing good. I really did enjoy Jedi Survivor, but you're not the only one that feels like that. Colt Eastwood also did not enjoy Jedi Survivor as much as he enjoyed Fallen Order. Jedi Survivor, like Fallen Order was, I want to say it was more linear. Jedi Survivor is more open. Like you have that huge planet. You have a lot more things you can do in Jedi Survivor. I kind of think the story might have been stronger in Fallen Order. Personally, potentially. I didn't really care too much for the villain in this one. I enjoyed the game overall because there's more things you can do. More stances, which was a lot of fun to play with. It really did seem like they stepped up their game. But I could see why people would be like, no, I think Fallen Order is better. The completion process is a little daunting in this one because you got to collect a whole bunch of like hundreds of these things to buy. But I didn't do that because I was just like, I just don't want to do this. This is boring. So, but you're not the only one who does feel like that, by the way. Christopher, he says, "Hey, Rand and Jez, I will invite you two to come to Sweden to do the podcast in my living room." Huh? I've never been to Sweden. That'd be fun.
I go to Sweden.
Yeah,
Sweden's awesome.
Lazar Wolf, I'm playing Gotham Knights right now, and it's perfectly fine. Not great. 7 out of 10 game. Why had it become so bad to have fun? 6 or 7 out of 10 game. Not everything can be a 90 Metacritic. Yeah. A lot of people think like if the game's like even a 7, that's like a horrible game. That's just kind of how the review scale is for video games these days.
Yeah.
If it's not like an 8, it's not worth playing. And that's kind of sucks. I really enjoyed Gotham Knights. I saw the reviews and I was like, damn. But then I played it myself and I'm like, I quite enjoy this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like an amazing game, but it was perfectly fine to me. A lot of people get caught up in the whole Metacritic stuff, especially for the console war where they judge exclusives and they're like, mine's better than yours. But yeah, for some reason there's this like taboo about how, you can't enjoy a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. And there are some really, really fun games that it's not going to be everybody's bag of tea, so they're not going to rate us high.
Bag of tea?
Whatever the saying
is.
A
whole bag of tea?
Whatever, Jazz. You know what I mean.
Cup of tea.
Cup of tea, there you go. Randy Dickens, the second. Stick a fork in this generation. Xbox screwed this gen by not having enough hardware and games to compete. What are your thoughts of skipping a mid-gen refresh and moving up plans for Xbox Series X2? Time it for 1 to 2 weeks before the release of the first COD. They have marketing rights. Bundle the game with the console for no additional cost and get the hardware sales bump. Just a thought, but curious what you think they should do to increase the user base. Well, I don't think they'll bundle COD. I mean, they'll do like probably a hardware bundle whenever they can. And Jez, you've even talked about this. Maybe they just start next gen 2 years early, right? Maybe Phil talked about this idea of like the consoles being like a phone model where you get more upgrades more often. But that was sort of like before the pandemic, and I don't know, maybe they're not planning on that. Maybe Sony does a mid-gen refresh in 2024, and then Xbox is like, here's the X2 in 2026. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like that idea. The idea of them launching the next gen a little bit early. And I have to wonder if maybe that's what some of the hints I've been getting was. Like, we're not interested in doing a mid-gen, or we shouldn't do a mid-gen kind of hints that I was getting. Maybe that's because they're just going to skip all the way ahead to next gen. And I think, like, it could serve Microsoft to not be so strict at following Sony on parity. Like, they launch a console, we launch a console, they launch a console. Because Nintendo doesn't. Nintendo doesn't give a crap. They're just
they
used to. Stuff.
They used to give a crap.
Yeah, they used to give a crap, but they don't now. They don't need to, I would say. Nintendo can just basically do their own thing. They've clearly got a winning formula under their belt now.
Well, let me ask you this. Can I ask you this question? Nintendo survives without big AAA third-party support, yes? Because most of them don't make it to the Switch, right?
Yeah.
Could Xbox survive without big AAA support? Like, if Alan Wake 2 wasn't on the console, if you know what I'm saying, could Xbox survive a similar thing?
Well, this is the sort of the unknown, the speculative world we're in right now with Xbox, because they've got so many studios, and if they get ABK, they've got so much IP. There's a lot they can do, you know, and like it's all about execution now. I think there is a world where they could live without big third-party exclusives if they can execute on everything they've got, and that's a very big if. You know, Nintendo executes pretty damn well when it comes to all their first-party stuff. We agree on that, right?
Yes.
They deliver big with what they have, whereas Xbox, you know, in the last 10 years have not. You know, we've seen Crackdown, you know, pretty much kill their own franchise with Crackdown. Was it 3 or 4? I can't even remember. It's 3, right? And you know, the handling of Halo, notorious handling of Halo and stuff like that. They've had momentum and then squandered it with things like Halo Infinite's live service, which, you know, completely killed the sort of broader interest in the game. Even though, like, a lot of Halo fans say to me that Halo's in a decent place now, but a lot of people who only play trending games, you know, like Rand, for example.
Yeah, whatever.
They've and
You wish.
Rand's mates. You've all bounced off Halo, even if it's great, you don't care about it anymore.
I don't play multiplayer games like that, bro. So whatever.
Well, anyway, you play Battle Royale.
Not anymore.
Right? What do you play now?
I don't play any multiplayer games now.
You don't play any.
There's no multiplayer games that come out. If you fall off of Rainbow Six or Rocket League or Call of Duty, it's not like there's new ones coming out. It's the same old multiplayer games.
Point. Are you saying it's like the market's saturated?
Well, that, but also we've talked about this before, where I think one of the big problems for me personally is that, like, we all were playing Rainbow Six Siege. We all have like 200. Some of my friends have like 800 hours in that. But once you fall off Rainbow Six Siege, you don't get back on it. But however, if there was a Rainbow Six Siege 2, like a brand new release, we'd all be back on it. Like, my friends, we all played Overwatch to varying degrees. And then everybody just stopped playing Overwatch. But when Overwatch 2 came out, they were all back on Overwatch 2, playing it. I mean, they eventually dropped Overwatch 2. But I'm just saying, like, that new release got them to go back to the game. Nobody is going back to, you know, Fortnite. Nobody's going back to Warzone right now. Now, supposedly there's a Warzone 3 that's going to happen. We probably will go back and try that out. I don't know. But if nobody's gone back and played Apex Legends or Rocket League, but I'm sure some of us would if there was an Apex Legends 2 or, whatever. But it is what it is, you know?
That's kind of interesting. It's almost like you're saying Bobby Kotick's onto something by slapping a 2 on something that's exactly the same and calling it a day, because that's what he did with Overwatch in the last 10,000 Call of Duty.
But to answer Randy's question, I think Xbox could be in a good position for next gen if they can be like, all right, we basically solved the problem of Xbox has no games. We released all this great content. People are excited about the studios. Everybody knows we have this all under control. You have a new gen, you have the consoles, you have PC. You launch with a new Elder Scrolls. You launch with a new COD. You know, you have some of these other games coming. I think that's essentially what you do. Like, how big is Elder Scrolls 6 going to be? Well, if that's like a launch title and that's exclusive to your platform, that's massive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think this gen's more like, we're going to grow Game Pass. We're going to get people into that, and we're going to essentially change the narrative surrounding our games, right? Because in the PS3 era, there was that narrative in the beginning that PlayStation didn't have shit. And they were a little bit lucky you could turn games out in 2 years, but it took almost that whole gen to change people. Like, oh, Sony's first party is good. They got Uncharted, they got Infamous, they got Last of Us, they have this, that, and the other. And that's when people really started.
Memes, man.
Yeah, but that's when they really started to turn the corner. And then, okay, yeah, the first couple years might have been dry for the PS4, but then they ended really strong. Xbox sort of needs that now, where it's like you can have these games starting with Starfield, and you move on to next 2024 and into 2025. And if all the releases are all of quality, and there's a lot of them, then sentiment, I think, turns around for a lot of people on the Xbox brand. And boom, here's a brand new console. Here's this big, huge exclusive you launch. You start off next gen on the right foot. People believe in it, and then there you go. I mean, that's how I feel. But yeah,
I agree.
Tommy says, first off, how do you guys like Barbie, and where are the pics of Jez in his pink tux? Second, what's the next game to get Starfield treatment? Dev directs. Have a good weekend, fellas. Haven't seen Barbie or Oppenheimer.
Seen Barbie.
So I
have seen Oppenheimer, and I thought it was overrated.
Oh, okay. Well, contrarian Jez here again, once again. Surprise! Are you going to say you're not a contrarian? Uh-huh.
Well, I can't. Maybe I overhyped myself a little bit for it or some shit. I don't know, but I just kind of felt like the story could have been structured better. I mean, on a technical level, it's incredible. Like the cinematography, the acting, all that stuff, absolutely state of the art. I just thought the story could have been structured a little bit better. That's all.
Fair enough. What about the next game to get a Starfield treatment? Hellblade, maybe? Probably.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, he says the next game to get a Starfield treatment, Dev Direct. I think it would be like Hellblade or Avowed. I doubt like something like Towerborn gets a specific one, although Towerborn could be included in an overall one, right?
It depends how many. I mean, the thing about the Starfield Direct is they had a lot of mechanics to go through.
They did.
So I don't think every game's going to need a full-blown hour-long direct. I don't think Hellblade's going to be that kind of super complex kind of game that warrants that. But maybe they do something like a developer direct where they do a bunch of games and maybe do 15, 20 minutes on Hellblade, do 15, 20 minutes on something else, so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
So I think they'll do a developer direct, some, maybe Q4 or something like that, maybe.
Omen says, do you all really think that adding a third Xbox SKU with the PS5 Pro competitor would be a big deal for developers? I feel like by creating a PS5 Pro, developers are already going to be creating a PS5 Pro mode. So surely it wouldn't be too hard to also build an Xbox Series X Pro version too, right? Well, I'm not a developer, so I wouldn't know. My line of thinking would be similar to that. It's like, well, you're already making a Series X version. So how hard would it be to be like, oh, well, this version is even better? Like, I would understand if you were making a version that was worse than the Series S, because that would actually be like, oh, well, we have to actually then get this to work on that, and that's worse. But it's the version that you're adding is something that's better than the top version, so I would think that doesn't require too much. But then again, I'm not a dev, so I don't know.
It's all economics, I mean, it might be worth it for some devs, but then a headache for others. And it's kind of on Microsoft to balance that, I suppose. You'd have to hope that it's all about install bases too, as well. It's kind of like, I postulate that the Series S install base versus the higher end SKUs, which includes PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X together. I postulate that's giving them a headache to some degree, especially as we increasingly leave behind the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, stuff like that. But if there is a PS5 Pro, presumably they would appreciate having the extra horsepower to actually deliver a version that could easily hit 60 frames per second 4K with the ray tracing on and all that kind of stuff. But again, it's all about tools, speculation. I'm not a dev, and even devs disagree about some of this stuff. Some devs say one thing, other devs say another, because it's different for each dev as well. One dev, it might be easier for one dev, and they might have the resources to do it, or they might have the in-house engine that scales very well. Other devs might not have it. So there's not like one size fits all solution to some of this stuff, and I guess that's where some of the, the back and forth and the speculation comes in at the end of the day. It's hard. It's hard to figure out what's best. But that's what Microsoft's job is at the end of the day.
Parker Griffith says, what is your favorite midnight release you've been to and why? I miss those nights of standing and waiting with everyone. The last one I did was Destiny back in 2014. The last one I did was Titanfall back in 2014. But my favorite one is Halo 3, for sure. It's the biggest one I've ever been to, and it was a lot of fun.
I've never been to a midnight release because in my town, it's a good way of getting yourself killed. But I have been to early morning releases, like first thing, 6 a.m. Sometimes they've done them in the past. I've only been to them for World of Warcraft releases. So I went to World of Warcraft Vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath of Lich King, and then I just started buying everything digitally. I actually had those games on disc, which is wild. I think Vanilla WoW was on like 3 or 4 discs, if I remember right, maybe even more. I can't remember exactly, but it was on a whole bunch of discs. But yeah, those are the only ones I've been to.
Yeah.
We're gonna miss that stuff's just never gonna happen anymore. It's never gonna happen ever again.
Yeah, well,
everything shifts to Disney.
That's true. Tharsman says, Jez, with Final Fantasy XIV coming to Xbox, will you finally make time to actually play the campaign and at least finish the Heavensward content? How far did you ever get in the game anyways? Shadowbringers story is some of the best story I played in any Final Fantasy game ever.
Yeah, I hear this a lot about the later expansions. I actually am level 60 right now on my Dark Knight, I think they're called. I always get them mixed up with Death Knight and WoW, even though they're not really similar. Well, they are similar. They're both tank, I guess. But yeah, I'm level 60. I can't remember exactly where I am in the story. I logged into it the other day. I actually resubscribed after the event. And got all set up and fixed my UI again because I didn't upload it to the cloud. I forgot to do it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get back on it, yeah. I do want to go through the story and, I'm a Final Fantasy fan at the end of the day. But I'll just play on both. Like, one thing a bunch of people ask me, will I have to start over again? And the answer to that is no. It's going to use the same account system, so any characters you've got on PlayStation or Xbox, you'll be able to log in with your Square Enix account and carry them across. I would have more than assumed, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna get back into it. Especially, I'm gonna get into it like during WoW off seasons because I've done everything I want to do in WoW for this season now, so I got time to play other things.
All right, we have.
But I don't think Rand's gonna play it though.
No, I'm not playing it. Trickster for Trey says, so with this new Square partnership, are we to expect Final Fantasy VII Remake appear? If we are, I'll take my PS5 back right now. I mean, maybe years from now. I don't think it'll happen until the trilogy's over, so that's like 2026, 2027. We may not even see it until like the next Xbox. Jez is a little bit more optimistic that we'll see it sooner than that, but we both do think at some point it'll come, but I don't know when. Or maybe it never does. Maybe Sony bought the exclusivity for the whole thing. We just don't know. So, Jay Foley says, Jez, any news or any plans to look into Project Keystone? This is a product that I'm actually excited about if it's still going to happen.
That's interesting. I've heard that Keystone itself is not coming out. So if they are working on something, it's a successor to Keystone. Personally, I'm sort of leaning towards the idea that they might not do it in the end. But one of the things they wanted to do was they wanted to make sure that it could run apps. So at the minute, the version of Keystone they had could literally only run cloud. But they're thinking like, well, if we're going to do this kind of device, it needs to be able to run YouTube, it needs to be able to run this, that, and whatever. And I agree with that entirely. But I suppose they're also sort of thinking about how many people are actually going to buy this device. They're probably looking at things like the Logitech G Cloud, which, by the way, is very good. I actually got a Logitech G Cloud, and now it's out in Europe, and the hardware is sublime. The sticks are great, the buttons are great, the screen's nice and big. The only problem is, it's just like, man, it's cloud. It's the only problem with it. You can run any cloud service on it, of course, xCloud, NVIDIA GeForce Now, which I think is a little better than xCloud for latency and stuff. But yeah, I have to wonder what their plans are for cloud, because the fact that we're hitting queues now with cloud says to me, like, I don't know if they're still growing it, I don't know what their plans are for cloud. And some of the people that I knew who were working on cloud, they've moved on to work on other things in other departments now. So I honestly don't know what their long-term plans are for cloud. They might be just sort of keeping in a holding pattern, wait and see if it blows up one day. But I just think like PC gaming, handheld PC gaming is so much more exciting. And I think Microsoft probably feels the same way. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I'll as soon as I know, I will let you know.
Lee Sanders says, hi, gentlemen. After the success of the previous pitch meeting, I now want to bring you the next AAA game and probably TV show from Microsoft Game Studios. The next action-adventure game developer by a new studio from a legendary creative director. The player controls Banjo, a battle-scarred bear with an awful past after his wife died at such a young age due to the outbreak of a mutated fungus causing animals to become cannibalistic creatures. They were just married. Very sad. 15 years later, a withered and tired Banjo, Troy Baker, is tasked with smuggling the one thing he promised he would never do, a bird called Kazooie, played by Ashley Johnson, on a journey across the dangerous landscape of a post-apocalyptic spiral mountain. Stealth and hand-to-hand combat is needed to survive the dangers that await, but the hostile, mutated fungus animals aren't the only things that stand in their way, as the evil Gruntilda, played by Mark Hamill, and her crew of actual true fireflies are looking for Kazooie. But whatever for. Directed by Neil Druckmann, The Bear of Us, trademark. Hashtag Xbox 2 pitch meeting.
The Bear of Us.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I do honestly wonder like how they bring Banjo into the modern era, because
Maybe they don't.
let's face it.
Maybe they never do.
Well, I don't think they will. I personally don't think they ever will either. But you know, if they did it just for the fans, it would have to be a mature game. I kind of feel like I don't think kids ain't gonna be that interested in Banjo. I feel like
No.
Gen Z is definitely not going to be interested. They're all teenagers now and older. Well, some Gen Z people are in their early 20s now, which makes me feel really old. So I don't think you get Gen Z with Banjo. They don't care about that stuff. And then younger little kids, I mean, they don't play consoles now. They play an iPad. I think you've completely lost the youth audience. So if they did do Banjo, it'd have to be an adult game at the end of the day. So maybe you do go dark with it. You know, maybe you make Dark Apocalypse Banjo.
Maybe.
Maybe it's a shooter.
I don't know about that. Saucy Moss says, would it making online free push more players to the platform as well as amp up game sales? A lot of people play free-to-play games anyways. I mean, my line of thinking has always been, if Microsoft thought they could make more money by having multiplayer free, then it would be free. They must clearly think that they wouldn't. And also, like, hey, it's value added to Game Pass Ultimate. If we don't have that, then the value's gone from there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe when Game Pass has so many users, I don't know. I just sort of feel like at this point it's probably never going away. Nintendo charges for it, don't they? It's like $20. PlayStation charges for it. I mean, I get where you could see you could have a competitive advantage if you got rid of it and people who play online would essentially come over here, but then the biggest games out, multiplayer games out there are free to play anyways that don't require a subscription, right? Fortnite doesn't need one and stuff, so it almost feels at this point it's probably just always going to be there. But yeah. James Wiseau says, how would you guys bode with the horror game? If you're both super jumpy, I would love to see you get spooked during a live stream of a game like Outlast or Amnesia. I don't really get jumped with horror games. I love playing them, but I'm not super jumpy. I mean, Jez streams some of that stuff, and you should do more streaming on your channel.
I just don't have time.
Yeah.
Man. I might have more time when I go back to Germany next week.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I used to say I'd have more time if I come to England, but I didn't. It's just a busy times, man. Since I became managing editor, and now I have to do my writing on top of a bunch of administrative work and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gooey Cheese says, hey, I asked last week about the chances of High Moon getting to finish their Transformers trilogy. I'm so happy to see the news the other day about Hasbro wanting to bring those old games back into Game Pass. Do you think Microsoft would bring back the online functionality if they can?
I would think so.
Yeah,
if they are going to do it, they'd go all out. I would hope.
Yeah, you would think so.
But there's no way to know. I mean, they might not even be able to find the code and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you can't find the code, then obviously that's a problem, right? And like I said, the games are delisted, so there would need to be new licenses. Maybe this is all just a thing for Hasbro to be like, we would love to license this to you again, Microsoft, and we would see how, if that would actually happen. But I would love for him to come back. SJ Dub says, hey, Rand and Jez, I originally was going to ask about Final Fantasy and Xbox, but hearing Rand talk about the bear made me go and delete my question. The new question is for Rand. No spoilers, but what was your favorite episode of The Bear? The 1-2 punch of episodes 6 and 7 of season 2 are probably the best TV I've ever watched. Highly recommend The Bear. 5 out of 5 perfection. The 2 best episodes are the same ones. Dude, episodes 6 and 7 were just impeccable. Highest quality TV that you can imagine of season 2. Like, I also really enjoyed the finale of season 1 like the musical montage at the end. That's one of my favorite songs. But bro, like, yeah, season 6 and 7, that whole stretch from episode 6 to episode 10 of season 2 is absolutely incredible. Probably the best 5-episode stretch of any TV show I've ever seen. I'm not being hyperbolic. I literally mean that. Mixicardus Cisco, the nobody seeking Kingdom Hearts on the X app. He says, "Hello, Wakes and Napalthor 19 hours. What game would make you each play? What game would you make each other play if you wanted to make your co-host suffer, be mad or frustrated, without cheats or using outside help that could power level or something similar, etc. You could set extra rules if you wanted, like adding a platinum 100% achievements. You don't have to hold back. Enjoy your day." Well, for Jez, I would say go to Gears 4 or Gears 5 and get all the achievements.
Ugh.
Which would take
Aren't
forever.
some of those achievements like 100,000 kills or something?
Yeah, whatever. Like, yeah, you would have to do all the multiplayer. I'd at least give him a game he would enjoy, but he would not enjoy the franchise once he was done. So what would you give me?
True that. I would give you the new Pokemon game.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And I would have you get full living decks of Pokemon.
Oh, even so, you wouldn't do like World of Warcraft where I'd have to do some stuff or whatever. It would be Pokemon.
Yeah, it'd be Pokemon.
All right, fair enough.
So
Fair enough. I'd probably hate you by the end of that.
You'd enjoy World of Warcraft, I think.
Yeah. We do have a couple super chats that came in during the Patreon sections. Thank you guys. Thank you all the Patrons for supporting us. Patreon.com/XB2 if you want to join as well. Watch Jez's hot chip challenge and ask some questions. Crippling That says, ironically, State of Decay 3 is likely the next game with enough systems to warrant a 30-minute focused direct. There's a lot of mechanics in those games. Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of stuff going on in State of Decay world. So, yeah. Big Afroman says, would you guys get Jaffe on the podcast? He said he would go on and said he was trying to get you guys on his show. Yeah, I would love to have Jaffe on at some point, but, I mean, nobody's ever...
We will.
Never came to me and said Jaffe wanted me on his show, but yeah, we're definitely.
I spoke to him recently actually, and we did talk about doing a collab at some point. It's just been so busy.
We're definitely gonna have Jaffe on at some point. Achievement says, I live in Texas, but am on vacation in Minnesota, and noticed a substantial difference in the level of streaming quality across states.
Interesting
Indeed.
Yeah, this is one of the issues with cloud. I mean, I presume he's talking about cloud, right?
I would imagine.
I mean, yeah, it's one of the issues with cloud, man. It's the laws of physics. You know, if you are physically far away from a data center, you're gonna have a wildly different experience. Like when xCloud first launched, I had a much better experience in Germany than I did in the UK. It improved in the UK over time, and now it sort of matches my experience in Germany. But for a long time, my experience in England was terrible, you know, compared to Germany. I was like, man, I must live much closer to a data center or something. I don't know the exact reason, but Microsoft, you know, over time they did improve. But now we're in this situation again where there's just sick queues all the time, you know, absolutely crazy queues, and it's kind of like, well, you know, this is another downside. Now we got queues. How many more downsides does this business model want to, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me, the business model right now. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with it.
See what happens. Anyways, that's it for the show. Almost 4 hours. Hope you guys enjoyed it all, even the people that Jez made mad. It's okay. Everything will be fine. And we should be back on Friday with another show to talk about whatever happens this week. And, I mean, I know August is going to be crazy because there's Gamescom and stuff, so some shows might be on Monday. Like, I know Jez will be... When Jez is at Gamescom, we won't have a show on that Friday. It'll be on Monday when he comes back. Unless, like, ABK closes and I do, like, a special show without Jez or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
you could grab Gaz or something. Gaz is at Gamescom
Yeah,
too.
Gaz is going to be at Gamescom too, so... So at the end of the month, there definitely might be a show on Monday because we can't do anything on Friday. We are trying to lock in our next guest for Xbox 2+1. Hopefully that's the middle of the month. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Yeah, we will see you again at the end of the week. So thank you guys, love you, and keep it gaming, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Later.